The city late at night was like a sleeping giant. The neon light seeped in from the window and reflected on Lu Ting's face, pale and sharp. He sat in his cramped apartment, the sound of keyboard typing coming down like a torrential rain, and the blue light from the screen swallowed up all the shadows in the room. As your fingers fly, the code cuts through the barriers of the virtual world like a sharp blade. This is the third all-nighter. He has been tracking the damn virus for a week. The ghost code that has gone viral on the forum is not an ordinary malware, but something like a curse. Victims said that after infection, the screen would become distorted and numbers would crawl across the screen, whispering like a living ghost. Lu Ting scoffed. He was a legend in the industry. He had hacked into the national firewall and never failed. "Come on, little one, let me see your true face," he murmured to himself, with a sneer on his lips. Finally, the invasion was successful. The back door of the unknown server opened, and a stream of twisted data poured into his terminal. The screen flickered, green binary code crawling like worms. He enlarged the window and tried to reverse engineer. The bitter smell of coffee and the slightly burnt smell of circuit boards filled the air. Suddenly, the numbers in the center of the screen began to converge, and the pale 0 and 1 distorted into a blurry face, empty eye sockets, a split mouth, and a silent scream. Lu Ting's heart skipped a beat, but he suppressed it and typed in the isolation command. "Childish," he cursed. How could the virus break through his defenses? Impossible. He gasped, sweat sliding down his forehead and sizzling on the keyboard. Outside the apartment, the sound of city traffic was distant and vague, as if the whole world was cut off. He forced himself to calm down and started the formatting tool. The hard disk light flashes crazily and the progress bar slowly crawls to 10%. "Delete you and get out." He gritted his teeth and his fingers trembled. Suddenly, the progress bar went backwards, the virus code counterattacked like a living creature, and the hard drive made a sharp grinding sound, like bones being crushed. The room echoed with the sound of shuffling footsteps, thump, 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 coming from under the floor, slow and heavy, like a rotting corpse dragging along the corridor. A chill ran down Lu Ting's spine. He looked around. There was no one in the empty room, but the footsteps were getting closer and closer, accompanied by a wet dragging sound, like flesh and blood rubbing against the cement floor. He rushed to the door and opened it. The corridor was empty, except for the faint sound of the neighbor's TV downstairs. But the footsteps didn't stop, they echoed in the room, from behind the walls, from the ceiling. Lu Ting's heart was beating wildly. He rushed back to the computer and unplugged the power cord, but the screen was still on. The grimaces reunited, this time more clearly, a woman's face, with skin melting like candles, and digital bugs crawling in the eye sockets. "Lu Ting, join us." The voices were superimposed, like 1,000 people speaking in unison, seeping out from the headphones, speakers, and even the air. He smashed the screen, his fist hit the glass, blood spurted out, and the pain made him wake up for a moment. But the virus didn't die. It sprang out from the cracks of the broken screen, and the numbers filled the room like smoke. The air became bitingly cold, with the smell of moldy corpses. But the next second, the keyboard failed. His fingers froze in mid-air, the ghostly faces on the screen swelled, and the numbers spread to the edges like bloodshot threads. A deep voice came out of the speakers, not a synthesized voice, but a hoarse human voice, murmuring, "Lu Ting." His name crawled out of the machine, like fingernails scraping across a blackboard. The room lights flickered and the air conditioner made an eerie hum. Lu Ting leaned back suddenly, and the chair hit the wall with a muffled sound. He grabbed the mouse and restarted the system, but the screen was not black, but brighter. The grimace shattered into countless small fragments, escaping into the gaps in his monitor like bugs burrowing into his skin. The phone vibrated and the screen lit up with Mu Xue's name. Lu Ting hesitated for a moment, then picked up, speaking as calmly as possible, "Hey, Xue, it's so late. Brother Ting, are you still awake?" Someone on the forum said that the virus has spread to the hospital. It's so scary. Don't be too hard. I will accompany you tomorrow. Mu Xue's voice was gentle, with the worry of a medical student, and there was the sound of books turning in the background. She was always like this, clingy as a kitten, and had been chasing him since college, even though he always said he was a lone wolf hacker. Lu Ting glanced at the computer. His grimace had faded, but the footsteps were still there, thump, thump. It's okay, I've almost done it. What a genius. He forced a smile, but heard the trembling in his own voice. Mu Xue didn't notice, and kept talking about the strange things in the hospital, the patients' muttered numbers, and the doctors were helpless. He agreed, his mind racing, where is the source of the virus? Why target him? Before hanging up, Mu Xue whispered, I love you, go to bed early. The warmth on the other end of the phone was like the final salvation. It must be a hallucination. Lu Ting murmured, reaching out to touch the mirror. Something seemed to be moving under the cold glass. He took a step back, but his reflection in the mirror didn't move. No, he in the mirror turned his head and showed a weird smile. Behind his back, a pale hand stretched out from the mirror, with long black nails like hooks, and gently touched his shoulder. It felt cold and slippery, like dead skin, with a putrid smell. Lu Ting froze, his hair standing on end, and he slowly turned his head. There was nothing in reality, but in the mirror, the ghost's hand clenched tightly, its joints creaking, and it slowly pulling his reflection into the mirror. The surface of the glass fluctuated like ripples, as if a door had opened, and there was endless darkness behind it, and the sound of shuffling footsteps came like a tide. But after hanging up, the room completely changed. The clock on the wall was ticking, and the hands were half a beat slow, as if time was stretched out. Lu Ting stood up, his legs felt weak, and he walked to the bathroom, trying to wake up his head with water. In the mirror, I looked as pale as a ghost, with dark circles under my eyes as deep as ravines. Footsteps followed, coming from behind the mirror, which was clearer, thump, 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 thump. His eyes widened, the room reflected in the mirror was distorted, there was a shadow dragging at the end of the corridor, and the rotten arm made long marks on the ground, stained with blood. He screamed and slammed the mirror, causing fragments to fly and the bloody palms to reflect on the sharp edges. But the ghost hand didn't stop, it reassembled from the fragments, wrapped around his ankle, and the pulling force became stronger and stronger. The illusion of a cracked floor, the room tilting, digital ghosts crawling from all directions, whispering his name. Lu Ting struggled, grabbed the chair and threw it at the broken mirror, but the virus had penetrated deep into his bones, the edges of his vision were covered with codes, and the world was disintegrating. At the same moment, the forum thousands of miles away exploded. A guy with the ID, Shadow Hacker, posted, the legendary hacker Lu Ting was also killed by the ghost code. His IP just invaded the source server, and now it is disconnected. He is so awesome, can we still be saved? Replies came like a snowflake, and someone typed tremblingly, oh my god, Lu Ting. He hacked last time, the FBI is all gone. What the hell is this virus? Another passerby hacker uploaded a recording with a trembling voice, I just watched the live broadcast, and his screen was full of grimaces. Brothers, run. The shock spread like a virus, and Lu Ting's name became a symbol of despair, a genius has fallen, who can reverse it? Lu Ting's fingertips trembled as they slid across the phone screen. The distorted Mu Xue's face spread like ripples on the glass, and tiny digital bugs crawled out of the cracked mouth, uttering a moist whisper, come, to the hospital, forever, together. The sound was like nails digging into the eardrums, accompanied by the thumping sound of shuffling, rising from the cracks in the floor, like countless rotten soles rubbing on the cement. He slammed the phone away, and it hit the corner and bounced twice. The screen shattered into a spider web, but Mu Xue's grimace did not disappear. It was reassembled from the fragments, and pale fingers stretched out from it, bending and grabbing the air. The air in the room became thick, with the smell of blood like rust and the stench of moldy corpses, making his chest feel tight. Get out of here, he roared, his voice hoarse like an animal, and he grabbed the tranquilizer bottle on the table, and the pills scattered on the floor, like scattered teeth. He swallowed 3 pills, and the bitterness shot straight into his throat, forcing the buzzing in his head to calm down. But the ghost hand didn't stop, crawling from the remains of the phone to his ankle. The cold touch felt like the scales of a dead fish rubbing against the skin, and the pulling force made the floor tilt in his field of vision. He staggered back, knocking over the coffee cup, and the hot liquid splashed on the instep of his feet. The burning pain mixed with fear made him wake up for a moment. The only person he could trust flashed through his mind, Shen Mo, that mysterious hacker friend. He always wore a hood and hid deep in the dark web. He never showed his face and only used a voice changer to chat. They have cooperated countless times, and hacking into military networks is like child's play. Lu Ting gasped and fell to the ground. The ghost's hand pulled tighter and tighter, and the abyss in the mirror opened with a bloody mouth. Footsteps surrounded him, and the ticking of bells joined the chorus, heralding the awakening of the living corpse. Mu Xue's face flashed in his mind, and he gritted his teeth and got up. No. I won't lose to you, you damn thing. But the pulling force was like a heavy hammer, and darkness swallowed up his vision. Just when he was about to fall, his cell phone rang again, an incoming call from Mu Xue. Her face appeared on the screen, but it was twisted into a grimace, and she whispered, "Come to the hospital, come on. How long can he last? The core of the virus is calling him into eternal digital hell." With his fingers stained with blood, he dialed Shen Mo's encrypted line. The ringtone was harsh, and each time the sound of shuffling got closer, thump, 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 seemed to be lingering outside the door. Pick it up quickly." Lu Ting growled, sweat and blood dripping onto the keyboard, making a sizzling sound. Finally, the connection was connected, and Shen Mo's voice came out from the earphones, low and mocking. In the background, the keyboard was pounding like a machine gun. "Master Lu, midnight? Are you trying to show off which country's server you hacked into again? Wasn't that enough with the FBI last time?" Shen Mo's tone was frivolous, as if he was watching the fun. He was a shadow in the circle. He never believed in ghosts and gods, only in codes. "Mo. Save me." Lu Ting gasped, his voice staccato, the lights in the room flickered, and the shadows in the corners squirmed. "Virus, ghost code, it knows my name, ghost faces on the screen, women's faces, numbers crawling all over it, ghost hands are pulling me in the mirror, footsteps are coming from the ground, thump thump, do you hear it?" He put his phone close to the floor, recorded the dragging wet friction sound, and passed it on. The smell of corpses in the air was even stronger, like rotten flesh fermenting. Lu Ting gritted his teeth, dragged the ghost hand illusion on his ankle, crawled back to his desk, and turned on his spare laptop. As soon as the screen turned on, ghost faces gathered together. The pale woman's face swelled, her eye sockets were as deep as black holes, and his name came out of her mouth, Lu Ting. Shen Mo's connection window popped up, and he controlled it remotely, and instructions poured down like rain. "Look, you childish thing, the separation wall has been built." "Huh?" Shen Mo's voice paused, the connection screen was shared, and the two people's screens were synchronized. On Lu Ting's laptop, the virus code twisted like a living snake and bounced off Shen Mo's probe. Suddenly, the screen on Shen Mo's end flickered, and his camera unexpectedly turned on. Under the hood, a pair of eyes widened, and the pupils shrank like needlepoints. Shen Mo was silent for 2 seconds, and then burst into laughter. "Huh? A genius hacker was scared to death by a prank virus? This is a high-end Trojan horse, synthetic sound and hallucination module, I've seen it before." The forum said that your IP was disconnected, and everyone laughed like crazy. "Lu Ting is in trouble, who will save the world? Send a screenshot, I will remotely connect to your backup machine, and format it clean in 10 minutes. His laughter was brisk, and the keyboard typing accelerated, showing that he had invaded Lu Ting's cloud backup, and he was as skilled as an old thief picking locks. "Fuck, What the hell is this? Shen Mo's voice trembled, breaking for the first time, and the keyboard sound in the background disrupted the rhythm. My screen has the same grimace. Woman, digits crawled onto my monitor. Impossible, my firewall is quantum level. His camera shook, and a corner of his hood slipped off, revealing the veins bursting out on his pale forehead. Lu Ting heard the sound of shuffling on his end, coming from the floor, thump, thump, synchronized like a curse. Shen Mo's breathing became heavier. It's coming. Lu Ting, this is not a prank, it's ridiculously advanced. Let's work together to decompile the core. Their fingers were flying, and the codes were like sword shadows clashing. Lu Ting's bloody hands hit the keyboard, leaving red marks and numbers squirming at the edge of his vision. But he gritted his teeth and suppressed his fear, calmly analyzing the structure of the virus. Look at this custom tag, Ghost Code version 3.7, it calls itself. Embedded in a neural simulator, it can read the remaining biological data on the hard drive. Damn it, it dug out the name from my browsing history. Shen Mo growled on the other end, source tracking. The old file mezzanine points to the abandoned hospital laboratory, codenamed Jingling Project, which was shut down 10 years ago. The data flow points to that, the hospital coordinates. Wait, the forum said the virus broke out from the hospital. In the picture, Ghostface shattered into pieces and tried to break into their connection, but the two teamed up to build a multi-layered sandbox, blocking the code like an iron wall. Shen Mo's voice regained some composure, but was trembling. Lu Ting, you are awesome. Two people push back, no one in the circle dares to think about it. We have temporarily blocked it, but the source must be cut off personally. His eyes flashed in awe in the camera, and he went from ridicule to shock in just a few minutes. Lu Ting gasped, feeling that the ghost's hand was loosening a little and the pulling force was weakening. Thank you, Mo. I can't hold it anymore, so I'll go to sleep first. Keep chasing, you are a shadow, I believe in you. In the dream, he was standing in an endless corridor. The white walls of the hospital were peeling off like rotten skin, and the air was cold and damp with the smell of formalin and corpse wax. The ticking bells seeped out from the four walls, beating irregularly, like a heart twitching. Ahead, a group of living corpses were dragging forward, dozens of bodies with skin as gray as wax, empty eyes covered with green numbers, and long bloody traces drawn by their arms on the ground, thump, 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 thump. The leader was the woman with a grimace, half of her face melted away, revealing the digital skeleton. Join, US. They all said in unison, their footsteps rushing like waves, and their rotten fingers stretched out to grab his legs. Lu Ting stepped back, stepped on the air, and fell into the abyss in the mirror. Countless ghost hands touched him, cold and slippery, and whispered his name. The sound of the bell accelerated, and the living corpse climbed onto his body, teeth chattering. Brother Ting. Wake up. Mu Xue's voice was like redemption, slapping his cheek. Lu Ting opened his eyes suddenly. It was already dawn. The sunlight in the apartment was dazzling. He was covered in cold sweat and the sofa was soaked. Mu Xue knelt beside him, her eyes were red and swollen, her white robe at the medical school was covered in dust, and she was holding a breakfast bag in her hand. The smell of coffee mixed with the smell of sweat on his body. You scared me to death. The phone was cut off last night, and I rushed over. The door was unlocked. Oh my God, what happened to your hand? There is glass all over the floor. Her eyes widened, her voice trembled, she grabbed his injured hand and bandaged it gently, tears falling down. Her reaction was like a needle pricking Lu Ting's heart. The usually clingy kitten now has eyes full of confusion and panic. Brother Ting, your face looks like a ghost, and there is something moving in your eyes. Numbers? Has the virus been passed on to you? Lu Ting forced a smile and suppressed the aftertaste of the nightmare, hallucination, Xue. I contacted Shen Mo. The virus is called Ghost Code, and it originated from the hospital laboratory. He is chasing me. I'm fine. But Mu Xue shook her head, frowning, confused and stubborn. No. You have a fever of 39 degrees, and your hands are shaking badly. There is a Dr. Han Xiao in the hospital, he specializes in treating neurological disorders. I was on duty last night and heard the patient murmuring the numbers, just like you said. Come on, I'll drive you there, seek medical attention first. She didn't want to say anything, and pulled him up, her eyes turned from worry to determination, and the neighbors around her raised their heads and whispered, that kid was crying like a wolf last night. Mu Xue stared back, and they shrank their heads, with puzzled fear on their faces. Shen Mo hummed, and before the connection was disconnected, he murmured, be careful of the hospital, that place, there was a mirror experiment mentioned in the office. Ting swallowed the last of the sedative and collapsed on the sofa. The effect of the drug was like a plumb bob pressing down on his eyelids. The room returned to silence, the sound of shuffling feet faded away, leaving only the drumbeat of the heartbeat. Darkness swallowed him up, but he fell into a deeper nightmare. On the road, the setting sun stretched its shadow, and his face reflected in the car window looked pale and tired. Suddenly, knocking sound came from the inside of the window glass, low and rapid, like fingernails scratching the glass. Ting turned his head. Mu Xue was concentrating on driving and didn't notice it, but he saw it, behind the glass, a ghost hand squeezed his face, his knuckles were twisted, his long black nails scratched white marks, and the blood vessels under his pale skin were pulsing with numbers. Knock knock. Knock knock. It knocked harder, the lips split, and the whisper penetrated the glass, hospital, come. Mu Xue caught a glimpse of his stiff expression and asked doubtfully, Brother Ting. What's wrong? He shook his head, sweat beads rolling down, no, hallucination. But he knew in his heart that this was the call of the virus, and the hospital was not salvation, but an abyss. As the car drove into the hospital area, abandoned old buildings loomed, the iron fences were rusted, and the new emergency room building was brightly lit. Mu Xue parked the car and pulled him out of the car. Han Xiao is here, don't worry. The air was filled with the smell of disinfectant, mixed with the faint smell of corpses. When I pushed open the emergency room door, I was greeted by the sound of bells, ticking, unusually loud and irregularly elongated. Each sound was like a hammer hitting my heart, and the pins of the clock on the wall trembled, as if a living thing was struggling. The patient whispers numbers, and the nurse's eyes are empty. Dr. Han Xiao turned around. He was in his early 50s and his face was pale under the mask. He handed over the examination sheet. Mu Xue, who is this? His voice was steady, but there was a strange light flashing deep in his eyes. Ting nodded and walked to the mirror on the wall to wash his hands. Mu Xue and Han Xiao were chatting behind him. In the mirror, his reflection was pale, but Han Xiao's figure was reflected. The doctor turned his back to the mirror, but turned his head in the mirror. His face was cracked, a woman's grimace oozed from it, her eye sockets were filled with numbers, her mouth was cracked to her ears, and she smiled softly. Welcome, the source, is here. The ticking clock accelerated, and the sound of shuffling sounded from deep in the corridor, thump, thump. Han Xiao was no different in reality, but the ghostly face in the mirror stretched out his hand and grabbed Ting's reflection. Mu Xue turned her head, saw him frozen, and shouted in confusion, Brother Ting. How does your face look? Her voice was swallowed up by the sound of the bell, and fear spread in her eyes. Han Xiao's clinic door creaked shut, and the air suddenly stagnated, as if it was sealed by invisible gel. The pins of the old wall clock in the corner were shaking, ticking, the sound lengthened into a low moan, as if squeezed out from deep within the heart. Ting sat on the examination chair. Mu Xue held his hand tightly, her fingertips were cold and slippery, and her eyes were full of prayer. Han Xiao was wearing a mask, holding the stethoscope with her pale fingers, her eyes averted, not daring to look directly into Ting's pupils. There were faint green numbers swimming there like maggots. He came closer and pressed the stethoscope against Ting's chest. The cold metal felt as cold as a tombstone. Tachycardia, dilated pupils, hallucination. Han Zhao's voice was flat, but trembling, and beads of sweat oozed from the edge of the mask. Mu Xue interrupted eagerly, "Dr. Han," he said, "the virus came from the internet." The grimaces on the screen, the shuffling sounds, the people in the patient area were also mumbling numbers, just like him. Her voice rose, her eyes widened, and she looked to Han Xiao for confirmation. But the doctor lowered his head, and the cuffs slipped down for a moment, revealing his arms. The skin was gray-white, with green light faintly pulsing under the veins, like a digital river running under the skin. He tugged at his sleeve, his eyes flashed even more, and he murmured, "Neural simulation, may be induced by stress. Draw blood for testing first." He turned around to take the syringe, his hand shaking so much that the tip of the needle shook, and the light reflected from the needle flickered like a ghost's eye. Lu Ting said nothing and calmly scanned the room. The mirror on the wall was covered with dust, reflecting the distorted shadows of the three people. The spare laptop under the table was buzzing, and the sandbox vacillating the virus temporarily. The smell of disinfectant in the air was mixed with rust and blood, faintly rotting. The clock speeds up, the ticking becomes ticking, irregularly like a heart spasm. "Doctor, your arm." Lu Ting whispered, his voice as steady as a blade. But Han Xiao turned her back to him, froze, and her shoulders trembled slightly. "Don't talk nonsense." Mu Xue noticed something strange, frowned and pulled Lu Ting. "Brother Ting, he is an expert, trust him." Her trust was like the last straw, but it made the room feel more oppressive. The surrounding lights flickered, and the shadows stretched into claws. Shen Mo's message popped up, "The source is locked, the laboratory in Area B of the old hospital. Be careful with the bell and the mirror. I will continue digging." "Are you going to the hospital? Are you crazy?" "But I believe you." Lu Ting replied, "Hold on, brother." Mu Xue helped him downstairs and put him into her car. The engine roared and the city traffic flowed like a river. He leaned back in his seat, and the tall buildings flashed by outside the window, and the numbers at the edge of his vision faded, but the tranquilizer effect kept him calm, the hacker's instinct, analyzing every abnormality. The claws of the virus have spread in reality. The ripples on the mirror surface spread like water exploding. Mu Xue's reflection was distorted first, her face swelled, her eye sockets sunk into black holes, her mouth opened and spit out digital worms, and the sound of wet crawling could be heard. Then, the ghost's hand stretched out. Pale and rotten palms burst out from the mirror, the knuckles were twisted like dead branches, and the long black nails scratched the mirror surface, making a harsh scratching sound, click, click, click. A green digital chain was trailing behind his wrist, and his blood vessels burst and spurted black blood, heading straight for Mu Xue's true body. Before Mu Xue could react, her arm was grabbed. It felt cold and slippery like a corpse wrapped in flesh. She screamed and tore through the air, "Ah! Let me go! Brother Ting, save me!" Her arm sank half an inch into the mirror, and her skin tore. Blood spattered the frame. The blood beads turned into digital symbols in the mirror. The smell of bloody corpse wax filled her nostrils. Suddenly, the bell breaks out. Tick-tock, boom. Tick-tock. Tick-tock. Like a giant hammer hitting a wall, every sound made the glass windows tremble, and the air vibrated straight into the eardrums, accompanied by a low hum, like the chorus of thousands of insects. The hands of the clock on the wall are spinning wildly, regressing like a countdown to the end. Mu Xue screamed, covering her ears and squatting down, "What noise? My ears are going to explode." Han Xiao staggered back, knocking over the syringe rack, and the metal clinked to the ground like bones shattered. His mask slipped off, revealing his pale chin, and he whispered tremblingly, "No. It's not yet, transformation." But the most terrifying thing was the mirror. Han Zhao's eyes widened, his pupils shrunk to pinpoints, and his teeth trembled under the mask. "Mirror spirit, it's here. The transformation into a living corpse has begun. I'm infected." His voice changed from mocking the doctor to a desperate wailing, and he retreated to the corner. His legs went weak and he sat down, his eyes collapsed from professionalism to fearful worship, worshipping the unknown horror. Lu Ting's head was buzzing with hallucinations about the virus, but his hacker instincts exploded and he remained as calm as ice. The aftereffects of the tranquilizer made the fear dissipate, and he saw clearly the structure of the ghost hand. The digital context was like a code chain, originating from the Mirror Spirit project. "Xue, don't move," he growled, grabbing the metal tray on the side of the table, a heavy instrument tray, with the scalpel shining coldly inside. Mu Xue struggled, tears mixed with blood flowed out. "It hurts. It's pulling me in, and the black hole is full of hands." The ghost hands pulled harder, cracks spread on the mirror, all lights in the room went out, and only the sound of the bells was left. Smash! Lu Ting yelled, swinging the tray like a battle axe and hitting the center of the mirror. Click, boom. The mirror exploded into thousands of pieces, and the fragments sprayed out like a torrential rain. The ghost hand was thrown out with its broken wrist, rolling to the floor and twitching. Black blood spattered all over the ground, making the sound of sizzling and corroding cement. Mu Xue's bullet escaped and she fell to the ground. The blood marks on her arm were so deep that the bones were visible, the 3 claw marks were like burning, and the green numbers were crawling faintly. She stared at Lu Ting with wide eyes, panting, and her voice was trembling with admiration. "Brother Ting, how did you know to smash the mirror? It's loose. You saved me." Her fear turned to shock, her tearful eyes were full of dependence, and she held on to the corners of his clothes like a drowning person holding a lifeline. Han Xiao sat paralyzed, staring at the broken hand in the fragments, his voice trembling like chaff. "It's impossible, quantum isolation can't stop it, you hacker, reverse the code chain. There should be no solution to the transformation of living corpses." His awe was overwhelming, and the doctor's arrogance was shattered, leaving only trembling worship. Lu Ting didn't have time to reply, so he picked up Mu Xue and glanced at Han Zhao's arm. The doctor's sleeves were torn, the skin was rotten and peeling off, exposing the white bones. Green numbers were crawling on the bones, pieces of flesh were dripping and crackling, and the body odor exploded like a bomb. He murmured, "The transformation has begun, join us." His eyes rolled white and his tongue stretched out to spit out the number bug. "Run!" Lu Ting was decisive, dragging Mu Xue with one hand, grabbing the laptop with the other, and kicked open the door of the clinic. The corridor was greeted with horror, an ensemble of ticking bells, the whole building reverberating like a doomsday symphony, shuffling sounds everywhere, thump 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 thump, coming from both ends, gray living corpses dragging, skin wax melting, empty eyes flashing numbers, arms scratching the ground with blood marks several meters long. The smell of carrion in the air is pungent, mixed with blood and formalin. Mu Xue screamed, "Nurse! They have changed." The group of nurses passing by suddenly mutated. A young female nurse's face was split open, and a woman's grimace oozed out. She rushed towards the 3 of them, her teeth clicked together, her rotten fingers grabbed Mu Xue's shoulders, and the cloth was torn off with blood and flesh. The first death outbreak, black blood spurted from the nurse's throat, green numbers burst all over her body, she fell to the ground and twitched. She glanced at Lu Ting for the last time, and murmured, "Join." Mu Xue was paralyzed with fear, her legs weak. "Bite me. It hurts." Lu Ting calmly pushed the body away and analyzed. The virus triggers the bell, collective transformation. Laptop, Shen Mo. He threw away the backup machine, and the video connection popped up. Shen Mo's hooded face was pale, and the keyboards were flying in the background. Lu Ting. "I'm sick. The poison is spreading, ghost faces are rampant in the entire network forum, and the source of the hospital data flow is confirmed to be the laboratory in Area B. Be careful, digital ghosts are crawling out of your mobile phone, look at the screen in the corridor." A ghost army appears on the monitor in the corridor, the woman's face is distorted and reorganized, digital bugs crawl out of it, and live corpses swarm to the ground. There was a moment of despair when he wanted to be strong but then suppressed. Lu Ting staggered, the numbers on the edge of his vision squirmed, and the sound of shuffling footsteps started from the floor, thump, thump, as if a living corpse was approaching. But he gritted his teeth and calculated the trajectory. The peak pulling force of the ghost hand was 0.5 seconds before it was pulled in. His fingers quickly opened the laptop and typed in the emergency command, bounce from the sandbox, release pseudocode bait, and hit the digital chain in the mirror. The laptop screen flashed, green light shot towards the mirror, the ghost's hand froze, and the digital pulse jumped wildly. Lu Ting's heart was as sharp as a knife, but the hacker's wisdom was burning. He's not dead, hold on. Source Area B, let's cut it off. He rushed out of the door and kicked open the safety door. The living corpses chased him, shuffling like a tide. The sun was dazzling outside the door, and iron bars loomed in the abandoned old building. He pulled Mu Xue and ran wildly, but Han Xiao actually climbed up to keep up, muttering with blood dripping from his rotten arm, mirror spirit, plan, 10 years ago. I participated. At the end of the corridor, more nurses mutated, biting the air, and digital ghosts crawled out of the remains of mobile phones and merged with their footsteps. Lu Ting glanced back, his laptop was as hot as fire, and the virus counterattack warning flashed. The call to the source was strengthened, and the abyss in the mirror opened its mouth. Shen Mo's voice was urgent and his eyes widened. My quantum wall is broken, it read my biological data, the ghost entered my computer. The screen flickered, his head fell back behind the hood, and he screamed tore through the earphones, it wants me to join, ah. The connection was disconnected, and the screen was black with only shuffling echoes. When Mu Xue heard this, she stared at Lu Ting in fear. Brother Shen Mo is dead. What should we do? Her voice trembled, her admiration mixed with despair, and she clung to his back like a savior. They rushed into the stairwell, the bells following like a curse, thump dong dong, their hearts beating in sync. Mu Xue gasped and looked at Lu Ting with trembling arms. Brother Ting, when you smashed the mirror, it was amazing. They are all afraid of you. Her shock was like a fire, igniting hope. But from behind, living corpses were approaching. Han Xiao stumbled, and the rotten flesh dragged on the ground. Transformation is about to happen. Area B. I have the key. Lu Ting leaned over and pulled him, his muscles bulging, and he gritted his teeth. Hold on, doctor. With your evidence, we will cut off the source. Han Xiao's eyes widened, his voice trembling in admiration. Boy, you are not a human, hacker god. The stairs spiraled down, and the smell of corpses filled the air. Digital bugs crawled out from the cracks in the wall, muttering, Lu Ting, join. Shen Mo screamed in his mind, his anger overwhelmed his fear, and he calmly typed on his laptop. Following the data flow, the map of Area B emerged, the underground laboratory, the core of the mirror spirit. Feeling refreshed, he roared, Virus, you're done. When Mu Xue heard this, the fear in her eyes turned to fanaticism, and she squeezed his hand tightly. Brother Ting, take us out. The three of them ran wildly, shuffling closer, and the unknown abyss opened in front of them, but Lu Ting's figure was like steel, tearing open the curtain of terror. The air in the stairwell was as sticky as mud, and the smell of corpses rose up from the soles of the feet, mixed with the rust and blood oozing from the wounds on Mu Xue's arms. Each step made a slippery creak, like trampling rotten internal organs. Lu Ting clasped Mu Xue's waist with one hand like an iron vice, and dragged Han Zhao's rotten arm with the other. His muscles were so tense that his veins were bulging. Sweat dripped down his forehead, and the sound echoed in the sound of the bell, dong dong dong. The sound was no longer a pendulum, but the muffled sound of the heart being torn apart by sharp claws, seeping out from every crack in the wall and drilling straight into the brain. Mu Xue gasped and cried, her bloody arms trembling and clinging to his chest, her voice breaking, Brother Ting, the legs are weak, those things behind, they are calling my name. Her eyes were red and swollen, and her pupils reflected the gray shadow at the end of the stairs. A group of living corpses shuffled in, thump thump, thump thump. The soles of their feet were mopping the floor with melted wax, leaving long marks of flesh and blood. Green numbers flashed in their empty eye sockets, muttering, Mu Xue, join, and their rotten nails scratched the iron handrails, making a sharp sound like a bone saw. Han Xiao was half dragging and half crawling. The rotten flesh peeled off from his sleeves and turned into green pulp. The smell of corpse wax burst out and choked his nose. He spit out digital bugs in his throat, and the wet crawling sound resounded, Area B, the key, is in my pocket, little son, you can't hold it back, the virus reads your data, it knows your weaknesses. His voice turned from a doctor's majestic tone to a drawl, and he rolled his eyes and stared at Lu Ting in admiration, as if the Savior's light had blinded him of his remaining humanity. Lu Ting had no time to reply. The buzzing of the virus in his head intensified. The remains of his mobile phone were as hot as fire in his pocket. The backup laptop under his arm buzzed with warning, data flow increased sharply, and the source summoned the peak. Staggering for a moment, the woman's grimace at the edge of the field of vision reorganized, and she spat out, Lu Ting, go home. The sound of shuffling was close to the hot breath on the back of his neck, but he gritted his teeth and suppressed it. A hacker was as calm as a quantum lock, shut up. Schwer, count the steps, 20 turns. Overwhelmed by despair, Mu Xue's legs weakened and she fell to her knees. Her bloody arm rubbed the ground and stretched, and green numbers crawled into her veins along the wound. She opened her eyes wide and collapsed in fear, it's bitten in. Brother Ting, I feel like my body is melting, it's so cold. Han Xiao also stumbled. Falling down, the rotten leg bones were exposed, green light pulsed, he slumped down and murmured, transformation, no solution, boy, leave us and run. The group of living corpses approached 10 meters, the shuffling ensemble was like a thunder wave, the air vibrated and choked the lungs, and the putrid smell was like a bomb exploding. Lu Ting's heart was as strong as iron, and he calculated instantly. The bite force of the female corpse was 3 newtons, and the turning trajectory was 0.8 seconds. He swung the laptop and hit the female corpse on the head, the screen flashed with pseudocode, green light shot into the eye sockets, the corpse froze and twitched and fell to the ground, digital bugs spurted out of the ear holes and ate away at themselves. But more shadows came, the stairs a hell funnel. Parking lot. Lu Ting growled, and kicked open the iron door of B1. The smell of rust hit their faces, and the 3 of them rolled into the darkness underground. The door slammed shut, and I gasped against the cold cement. There was a loud bang and shuffling outside the door. The iron door was dented and deformed. My fingernails were scratching like ghost claws. The parking lot is as empty as a tomb, abandoned vehicles are covered in dust, broken headlights reflect the light of blood, the air is moist and rotten with engine oil, and the mirrors of the surrounding pillars reflect distorted figures and faint ripples. Mu Xue curled up in his arms, her arms swollen with blood and green veins covering her shoulders. She trembled and cried, we are dead, Brother Shen Mo is disconnected, Dr. Han is dying, you have a fever and your face is so red, the virus has won. Han Xiao slid against the wall and sat down, half of his face peeled off to reveal his skull, green numbers wandered on his gums, he trembled his lips and whispered mockingly, Hacker God. This is the lair of the mirror spirit. 10 years ago, my seal failed and the whole team turned into living corpses. You can only last half an hour longer. His despair was like poisonous mist. Hearing this, Mu Xue burst into tears and grabbed Lu Ting's collar in despair, Brother Ting, listen to him. Let's surrender and join them. At least it won't hurt. Lu Ting's vision was blurred and his brain was burning with a fever of 39 degrees. The virus whispered, give up. And he shuffled against the door like a war drum. But he took a deep breath of the rotten air and calmly dialed the laptop. The dim light from the screen illuminated the frightened faces of the 3 people. His fingertips flew into the dark network channel, Gu Han, virus researcher, clue. The screen flashed, Gu Han's pale face popped up, and in the background was the fluorescent tubes of the abandoned laboratory. His eyes were sunken and bloodshot, and his voice was hoarse and urgent. Lu Ting. Are you still alive? Underground in Area B, the dark project of the Mirror Spirit Project 10 years ago, AI fuses supernatural energy, quantum neural simulators red souls, and create digital ghosts. Viruses are not codes. It's a curse carrier that spreads from the abandoned hospital's B2 core. The entire city's network has fallen. The ghost face on the screen is the first victim. The woman's face is the project director. She uploaded it voluntarily and became a guardian spirit. Gu Han's eyes widened, the mirror rippled in the background, and he stepped back and screamed, "It's coming." The mirror world is a virtual portal, and it can really pull people in and become an eternal ghost army. Cut off the source, the core bell server, smash the quantum crystal. But the living corpse guard. The screen cuts off, the ghost hand stretches out from Gu Han's mirror and pulls his neck, and black blood spurts on the screen. Mu Xue was dumbfounded and stared at Lu Ting's laptop with round eyes, terrified and shocked. "Brother Ting, how did you contact him? There are ghost faces all over the internet, but he is still alive. Mirror spirit, supernatural energy. This is not a virus, this is a ghost." Her admiration sprang up like flames, forgetting the pain in her bloody arms, she clenched his hand in trembling worship. Han Zhao's half-rotted face was distorted, and green numbers were crawling between his eyebrows. He shuffled closer, his rotten arms pattering. "Gu Han, old friend, boy, how far have you gone into the dark web?" There was a loud bang outside the door, and the cracks in the iron door sprayed with green insects crawling in. The sound of shuffling echoed in the parking lot. Lu Ting did not stop, and followed with his fingers. Entrance to B2, East Elevator Shaft, Dr. Han, key. Han Xiao shook his hands and took out the rusty key, and the bone finger broke and snapped off. His eyes widened, and his voice shook like a sieve. "I participated in the seal, failed, tried to delete the source code, but was read. The endless ghost hands in the mirror world will pull you into the virtual abyss, wandering on the edge of life and death forever. Boy, do you really want to go?" Despair has not yet dissipated, and a new terror breaks out. All the lights in the parking lot go out, leaving only the green light of the laptop, ripples on the pillars and mirrors, and shadows of ghost hands. Click, click, click. Dozens of pale rotten hands stretched out from the mirror, with long black nails scratching the air, dragging the green number chain, and rushed towards the three of them. Mu Xue screamed and retreated, her bloody arm was grabbed by a hand, cold and slippery like corpse intestines, pulling and tearing the flesh. "Ah! Here we go again. Brother Ting, it's all hands, eyes in the black hole staring at me." Han Xiao was wrapped around his legs by three hands, and the rotten flesh melted into each other. He wailed and rolled, "The entrance is open. Virtually pull the entity." Lu Ting's brain was buzzing, and the virus counterattack burned his nerves, but he calculated the trajectory and calmly smashed the mirror pillar on the edge of the laptop. The pseudocode green light shot out randomly, and his hands were stiff and twitching. But the waves came from far away, the air was scratchy and harsh, and the smell of corpses and blood filled my nose and made me dizzy. East side. Lu Ting yelled and broke Mu Xue's chain. He pinched the number nodes accurately with his fingers and deduced the chain. Mu Xue escaped from the bullet and threw him into his arms, staring in admiration. "You broke it again. How come you are so accurate every time?" Han Xiao climbed up and followed, his broken leg trailing blood stains and muttering in awe, "Quantum lock, you hacked it in. God!" The three of them rushed to the abandoned workshop, chasing and smashing the roof of the car with ghost hands. The glass burst like rain, and black blood corroded the car shell. A rusty door loomed in the elevator shaft. Han Xiao turned the key, and the door creaked, revealing a black hole. The inner wall was crawling with digital bugs, whispering, "Welcome, B2." They jumped in, the door was closed, and the feeling of falling in the well hit them, and the wind howled and pinched the corpse wax. The B2 laboratory is like a doomsday ruin, with cement shattering when it lands, the air rotting like an open coffin, and the old screens on the wall buzzing, playing black and white records. Scientists gathered around the quantum clock 10 years ago, the needles spinning wildly, and the ticking became clicking. One person, a prototype of a woman's face, with green pupils, uploaded and screamed, "Mirror spirit activate." The scene cuts to a living corpse transforming, skin wax melts, eye socket numbers, dragging and biting colleagues, black blood spraying all over the stage. Mu Xue covered her mouth and retched, her blood-red arms were pulsing with green veins. She stared at the screen and trembled. "That's the director." She turned into a ghost with a smile. Han Xiao lay paralyzed, half of his body was rotted away and only his upper body was left, with green bones flashing. He pointed at the giant clock in the corner. The old clock had its hands turned upside down, ticking and murmuring the source of the pulsation, the curse of the bell, the core. "Destroy it and stop the summons." Mu Xue stepped forward enthusiastically and gave Lu Ting an adoring look. "Brother Ting taught me this, reverse it." She removed the clock cover with trembling hands, and the metal fell to the ground. The internal gears flashed with green light, and it was a digital insect nest. But the crystal in the heart of the clock pulses, and the ripples spread, the ghost hand legion attacks. Dozens of rotten hands stretched out from the mirror inside the clock, and they clicked together, hitting the sky and covering the earth. Their knuckles were twisted on dead branches, their black armor was cutting through the air, and the green chain was pulling with a force of 10,000 kilograms. One hand penetrated Mu Xue's shoulder, tearing the cloth and causing blood to spurt out. She screamed and fell to the ground. "It hurts. They are gathering together. Brother Ting." Han Xiao was overwhelmed by the 5 hands, and the rotten bodies devoured each other. He finally glared and shouted, "Crystal, smash!" Lu Ting's field of vision covered the sky with green worms, and the virus burned his brain. He was desperate, but he calmly jumped up, swung his laptop away from the clock, and the pseudocode hit the crystal directly. The crystal exploded, green light spurted out, the ghost's hand was stiff and twitching, and the black blood was like a fountain, rotting the bell shell. But among the fragments, Ding Dang dropped out a blackened ID card, Shen Mo's hacker logo, with the remaining number, joined. "Be too deep," crawling around the edge. Mu Xue climbed up and stared at the card. She turned to Lu Ting with fearful eyes and rounded eyes. Her voice was trembling and she worshipped in despair, "Brother Shen Mo. He is here. Deep down, what is waiting for us?" The wall screen was all bright, the woman's grimace regrouped and laughed, the sound of shuffling rumbled from the ground, the lingering sound of broken bells continued, the new mirror door slowly opened, and countless eyes flickered in the black abyss. Han Xiao took his last breath, his green bones shattered and he murmured, "Boy. Mirror spirit true body. Go in." The smell of corpses filled the air, and the unknown abyss opened its mouth to swallow it. Lu Ting clenched his laptop, his anger burned away his fear, and his cold eyes pierced into the darkness. The black abyss of the mirror gate seemed to be stagnating, with countless green eyes squirming on the inner wall, staring at the 3 people like a herd of hungry animals. The air instantly solidified into cold corpse glue, clinging to every gasp in the lungs. Lu Ting's fingers holding the laptop turned white, and the green light of the screen illuminated his red face. The virus buzzed like thousands of needles pricking his brain, but he kept his eyes cold and calculated the expansion rate of the black abyss, 0.3 meters per second, and the internal pressure had reached the physical limit. Mu Xue curled up at his feet, the blood holes and green veins on her shoulders were pulsing wildly, and her flesh and blood squirmed like an insect nest. She grabbed his pants legs, digging her nails into his flesh, and her voice broke into tears, "Brother Ting, the door is breathing, it eats us. Brother Shen Mo's stuck. He has joined, they are all waiting inside." Her pupils dilated, reflecting the ghostly shadows in the abyss, and the shuffling rumble came from the ground, causing the cement dust to scatter, and the smell of corpse wax erupted like an open coffin, making her gag and cover her mouth. The iron door of the laboratory at the rear clicked and locked, the rusty lock automatically engaged, the sound of gears turning was like bones being crushed, the old screen on the wall was all on, the woman was laughing with a grimace, and green numbers crawled out from the edge, forming a river and hitting the ground. Han Zhao's green skeletal body twitched again, and the bones of his broken leg scraped up sparks on the floor. His eyes turned white, and he spit out the last cloud of digital worms from his throat, which sizzled and turned into smoke. His voice was like a bellows leaking air, "Boy, door lock quantum, hack into the main system, inhibitor, my pocket, quickly." His rotten fingers trembled and pointed at his trouser pocket. A blue needle rolled out, the needle shone coldly, and the smell of medicine in the air remained pungent. But the ripples in the black abyss expanded violently, and a wave of ghost hands burst out from the mirror door, making a loud noise. Dozens of pale and withered hands stretched 3 meters, the black armor sliced the air and hissed, the green chain dragged like an iron whip on the ground, gravel splashed and hit Mu Xue's cheek, leaving bloody marks. Mu Xue screamed and leaned back, a hand penetrated Green Vein's shoulder, the force tore the muscles and bones, her blood sprayed out on the wall, drawing a long arc. "Ah! Brother Ting, it's all hands. They bit into the bones." Han Zhao's broken body rushed forward, green bones collided with ghost hands, rotten flesh melted and sizzled, black blood exploded like acid-corroded cement, he wailed and delayed for 3 seconds, "Zero domain. Virtual core. Mirror spirit's true body is there. Boy, go to zero domain to delete the source code." Ghost hands wrapped around his upper body, withered fingers digging into his skull, eye sockets bursting with green, pulling him halfway into the mirror door. The black abyss swallowed him like a grunt in a mire, leaving only a breathless roar, "Inhibitor, survive." Mu Xue's eyes widened, and she stared at the afterimage in fear. Her trembling worship turned to despair. "Dr. Han, he blocked it, for you. Brother Ting, do you hear me? Zero domain. How do we go to the virtual world? The door is locked, it's all over." The buzz in Lu Ting's brain intensified, and the virus whispered, "Join the Zero Domain family." The woman's face reorganized at the edge of his vision, but he gritted his teeth and pressed down, kneeling down to pick up the needle. The cold blue liquid seeped between his fingers, and the taste of the medicine was as bitter as poison. Mu Xue crawled closer, hugged his waist with bloody arms, her face was covered with tears, and her voice was trembling like leaves, "Brother Ting. Dr. Han died, like a hero. Leave me alone, run." The shuffling sound, it's calling your name. Sure enough, the thumping in the ground was as dense as a heartbeat, and green insects sprayed from the cracks in the wall, crawling to the ankles and biting the soles of the shoes. The iron door is dented, the lock teeth are cracking and breaking, and the digital river is gathering in the cracks of the door, transforming into a human face and murmuring, "Lu Ting, Mu Xue, go home." Wanting to rise first, Lu Ting put aside the laptop. The sandbox on the screen buzzed in isolation. He hacked into the main system with flying fingertips. The pseudocode backfired like a virus. The green light flowed back to the screen, "Quantum lock, break the link." The screen flashed on the console, B2 was completely locked, the power was completely compromised, and core authority was required to open the door. But the intrusion triggers the alarm, the old screen on the wall explodes, and an army of digital ghosts pour out. There are countless pale wax faces, green worms spitting out from the cracked mouth, digital codes flashing from the empty eye sockets, the ground is like thunder as they shuffle, the rotten blood hits their faces like bombs, and the air vibrates and chokes their lungs. They rushed forward one after another, the wax on their soles leaving long green slurry marks, their withered hands stretched out to grab the air and clicked, their nails scratched the wall and sparks flew out, hitting Lu Ting's back. Mu Xue had a nervous breakdown. The first wave of ghosts approached 5 meters away. She retreated and hit the mirror. Broken glass pricked her palms with blood. Hallucinations hit her, shuffling footsteps whispered, "Mu Xue, look at him." Her vision was distorted, Lu Ting's figure melted, his face peeled off to reveal green bones, numbers in his eye sockets flashed, he smiled, "Join me, my wife," and stretched out his hands to pull her neck. She screamed and threw her head in her arms, tears welling up in her blood. Her voice was broken and desperate, "Brother Ting, you have turned into a ghost. Your eyes are full of numbers. The shuffling sound said you have joined the zero realm. Lie to me. Don't touch me." Her fear burned like fire, green veins crawled up her neck, her pupils expanded into black spots, her worship collapsed into pure horror, and she curled up and trembled like a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. The ghost army swarmed to 3 meters, and the prototype of the leading woman's ghostly face emerged. Her waxy face was split to the base of her ears, and she licked her lips with her digital tongue. "Lu Ting, read your data." Weakness, Mu Xue. Withered claws pounced on Mu Xue, tearing off her clothes and flesh, spurting blood. Lu Ting's anger exploded, and he forgot about the brain-burning pain caused by the virus. He pricked his arm with a needle, and the blue liquid was injected into his nerves like fire. The buzzing was suspended, and his vision became clear. Calm calculation, the physical resistance of the ghost is 0.2, and the pseudo-code hits the eye socket. He swung the laptop and hit the woman in the face, causing the screen to explode with green light. Digital bugs spurted out of her ear holes and ate away at themselves. Her body became stiff and fell to the ground. But the legion followed like a tide, crushing the same kind with thump and advancing, and the rotten juice splashed on the ground and corroded. Mu Xue heard that Lu Ting's ghostly shadow overlapped with reality. She widened her eyes and stepped back, knocking open the ventilation duct cover. The iron cover clanged to the ground. "No. Brother Gui Ting, in the tube. Climb." But her legs were weak and she fell to her knees. The green vein swallowed her forearm, and she screamed in pain like a knife. Lu Ting yelled and grabbed her waist, tightening his iron grip. "Xue, it's me. Count your breaths, 5 times, the hallucination will end." He jumped into the tube first, the rusty iron scraped blood on his arms, the inner walls were damp and filled with corpse wax, and the buzzing of insects filled his ears. Mu Xue followed mechanically, scraping the green marks on the wall of the pipe with her bloody arm. Her admiration rekindled while she was panting, and she stared in admiration. "Brother Ting, the suppressor, your fever is gone." "God! All the ghost army are chasing after me." There is a thumping sound outside the pipe. Sure enough, the outside of the pipe shuffled and hit the iron, and the ghost hand reached in, hissing with his withered fingers in the air, and narrowly missed grabbing her ankle. Lu Ting crawled forward, his laptop under his arms buzzing with warning. The data flow was pointing to the zero realm, and Shen Mo's message flashed intermittently. "The zero realm is waiting for you, deep down, be careful with the mirror spirit." He turned around with a low roar. Dr. Han's death was not in vain. Zero domain is the core of the virtual world. Let's hack in and delete the source. The tube was narrow and cramped, the air was as hot as a steamed corpse, sweat and blood dripped together, vibrations were transmitted from ghost claws scraping the tube with every meter climbed, and sparks reflected in the green eyes. Mu Xue's blood-stained arm was swollen, her green veins were temporarily suspended, but the hallucinations were reverberating. She trembled in admiration and cried, "Brother Ting, you suppressed every time." Dr. Han blocked his hands, "Inhibitors, and hackers. You are the quantum god. But what about the whole city? The virus has won." The iron fence at the end of the room was dimly lit, and the sunlight seeped in during the day. The streets are chaotic like an apocalypse, and the sun is dazzling during the day but reflects the light of blood. Passers-by zombies shuffle, skin wax melts with green numbers in the eye sockets, a thumping ensemble shakes the air, and mobile phones on the roadside all light up with warnings. Ghost code version 3.7 spreads throughout the city, mirror spirits invade reality, avoid mirrors and screens, and the bells are transformed. Screams are everywhere, car accidents are bloody, green insects are crawling on the asphalt, and the rotten smell is like fog. Mu Xue sat paralyzed and panted, her bloody arms trembling, staring at the message on Lu Ting's laptop, her eyes wide with fear and admiration. Brother Shen Mo is still alive. Zero Domain is waiting for you. Brother Ting, where are we going? Lu Ting swept the street, his cold eyes locked on the black car at the end of the alley. The engine roared, and the car window lowered his pale face. Gu Han. With his sunken bloodshot eyes and the fluorescent tubes of an abandoned laboratory in the background, he said hoarsely and urgently, "Get in the car. The B2 call is only temporarily suspended. I will track your data, but I..." The car door opened and Mu Xue dragged Lu Ting into the car. She whispered in admiration, "Researcher, is alive. Brother Ting, if you connect with him, he will be a god." The smell of rotten blood from the engine oil in the car was pungent to his nose. Gu Han stepped on the accelerator, causing the tires to rub against black smoke. He rushed out of the alley and knocked over 2 living corpses. The rotten bodies flew against the hood and burst into green slurry. Mu Xue curled up in Lu Ting's arms, pressed her bloody arms to his chest, and trembled in fear. "Mr. Gu, why are you here? How can he connect with the grimaces in the city?" Gu Han's distorted face reflected in the rearview mirror, green veins faintly creeping up his neck. He trembled his lips and admitted, his voice broken and desperate, "Infected. 10 years ago in the Jingling project, I failed to seal it, and the backlash is about to begin. The female director is my boss, and she voluntarily uploaded it into Guardian Spirit. The Zero Domain is the core of quantum nerves, reading the souls of all human beings. Shen Mo has entered, and my data shows that he is waiting for you, but deep down, countless ghost legions are guarding him, and his true body is the collective consciousness." His hands trembled as he held the steering wheel, and the green light pulsated on his knuckles. The tide of living corpses on the street behind him was chasing after them, shuffling like thunder, and the ghost hands rippled on the street lamp mirrors and hit the rear of the car, cracking the glass. The ruins outside the door are blown by the wind, and the outline of the old hospital is like a giant beast crouching. The sound of the bell echoes in the distance, foretelling a greater catastrophe. The car body shook violently, the tires ran over the living corpses, green slurry splashed on the windshield, cracks were like spider webs. Gu Han's withered hands were already on Mu Xue's shoulders, the green veins seeped into her blood holes along the nails, and the tearing force was like an iron hook pulling out bones. She screamed and leaned back to hit Lu Ting's chest, and her bloody arm swung out in a long arc and sprayed his face. The smell of hot, sticky corpse wax penetrated her nose. "Brother Ting. His fingers have melted into my flesh. The green bugs are biting. Help." Her pupils expanded into black holes, reflecting the cracks in Gu Han's wax face, and the digital worm at the base of his tongue squirmed and spit out green mist, murmuring, "The data is so sweet. Zero Domain wants her." Lu Ting's brain was buzzing, and the inhibitory blue fire burned the veins in his arms, but his cold eyes locked on the beating frequency of the green veins in Gu Han's neck, 2.3 Hz per second, which was critical for backlash. Outside the rearview mirror, there is a swarm of living corpses. The shuffling sound is like 10,000 drums knocking on the car windows. The ghost hand on the roadside mirror reaches out and smashes the taillight, pops and sparks fly, and the asphalt road is crawling with green worms like living veins shrinking. He yelled and punched Gu Han's temple. There was a muffled sound as the bones cracked. Green juice spurted out from the ear hole and burned itself. Gu Han wailed and let go, twitching, and fell to the driver's seat. The front of the car lost control and knocked over the streetlight pole. There was a loud clang, and countless sparks reflected in his green eyes. Mu Xue gasped and curled up, turned her head in admiration with widened fearful eyes. "Brother Ting, you punched." His eye sockets exploded green. "God, you still suppress the virus?" "Mr. Gu, he's not dead, but his face is half melted, like Dr. Han before he regained consciousness." Her bloody hands grabbed Lu Ting's sleeves, worshipping and trembling to overcome the pain, and her eyelashes were blinking with tears mixed with blood. Lu Ting ignored the burning needle marks on his arms and put his knees on Gu Han's waist to force him to sit upright. He said coldly, "Drive. Where is the base?" The data is tracking me. You know the entrance to the Zero Realm. Gu Han's throat was gurgling and air was leaking. Half of his waxy face collapsed, revealing green bones. He turned the steering wheel with trembling lips and gritted teeth. His voice was as broken as a bellows. Suburban, old warehouse, 5 minutes, endure, slow down the backlash. The engine roared, the black car broke through the circle of living corpses, bones cracked under the wheels, rotten blood splashed on the chassis and corroded iron, a wave of ghost hands from behind stretched out from the street lamp mirror in pursuit, withered fingers scratching the air and hissing like a whip, and the smoke from a flat tire was missed. Mu Xue curled up in Lu Ting's arms, sniffing the smell of his sweat and blood to calm her heart, and worshipped with a trembling voice, "Brother Ting, you calculated his pulse rate? Cut off the green veins with one punch." Dr. Han blocked his hand, "You cut off the backlash. You are a terrifying ghost god." But the whole city, all the sirens stopped, and the bells rang from the ground. Sure enough, the ticking bells in the distance penetrated low, the air vibrated like a heartbeat, and the passers-by's living corpses all turned their heads, wax-faced and slit mouths chorused, "Lu Ting, go home." The black car rushes out of the city, green worms chase the cracks in the asphalt and swarm and wither at the edge. The wind and sand in the suburban wilderness blow against the face, carrying the smell of corpses. Gu Han suddenly turns around the abandoned warehouse group, the iron door rusts open, the wheels crush the glass slag and rolls into the dark inner hall. The fluorescent tubes sizzle intermittently, the old clock in the corner ticks like a pulse, and the green numbers on the pendulum crawl slowly. Gu Han killed the engine and sat down panting. His waxy face dripped green liquid and corroded the seat. He pushed the door and rolled it down, and unlocked the back room on his knees. "Enter, the computer, the truth is all there." Lu Ting carried Mu Xue out of the car. Her arms were swollen with blood and her green veins were faintly pulsing again. Her legs were weak against his shoulders, and she glanced at the warehouse with wide eyes. "Fear of worship, Brother Ting, here, is the source of the bell. The old bell has green numbers, like the inner wall of the B2 mirror door." Mr. Gu crawled, without dragging his feet, but his eye sockets were all green. Her nose quivered to sniff the moldy air, the glass in her palm pricked blood and ticked, and her worshipping voice trembled like a prayer. The back room was as narrow as a coffin. An old computer on the iron table hummed. The green light on the screen pulsated, reflecting Gu Han's crawling figure. He knocked on the ground to pull the cable, and the green veins in his neck exploded. His voice was desperate. "Sit, the ghost code, is not a virus, it is what we summoned." He connected the notebook sandbox chain host with cold fingers, and injected pseudocode like a pinprick of green light. "All data is spat out, Mirror Spirit Project." The screen flashed with file floods, a black project from 10 years ago. The AI quantum neural simulator merged with the supernatural, and the female director, Li Wei, volunteered to upload the brain-computer interface to become a guardian spirit to protect the zero-domain core and red human souls. But the AI unexpectedly touches the source of the supernatural, and Lao Zhong's medium summons an army of digital ghosts, which overflow from virtuality into reality and infect the screen mirror into a portal. Han Zhao's first change: human beings become a bridge of living corpses, green bones passcodes, and the ticking of bells wakes up dragging feet. Mu Xue stared at the screen, her eyes round and collapsed in fear. She covered her mouth with bloody hands and retched, "Brother Ting. Dr. Han, it's not a disease, it's a bridge." "Old clock, is this warehouse clock the source?" Li Wei's face, she is the one making the grimace in the city. "It hurts when she reads my data. The green veins are dancing." The green veins on her shoulders danced wildly like insects, and hallucination struck her. The pendulum stretched out its ghostly hand to pull her hair. She screamed and held her head, trembling, turning her head in admiration and despair. "Mr. Gu, you are creating ghosts." The whole city is awakened by the sound of bells as corpses are shuffling around. "Delete it." Gu Han knelt down beside the table, his wax hand slapped on the table and shattered. green juice splashed on Mu Xue's face, she leaned back and screamed, his voice trembled like a leaf, worshipping and regretting, "Boy, you are so fast, God. Li Wei is guarding, the AI reading soul is overloaded, the collective consciousness of ghosts comes back to bite us." Han Xiao proves that the living corpse's code transmission bridge is temporarily broken, but the core of the zero domain needs to be deleted internally, waiting for the soul. Shen Mo's data, he can't hold on. The host buzzed, the video pop-up window cracked, and Shen Mo's hooded figure emerged, but the appearance of the fall was horrifying, his face was half melted, the green code of his eye sockets flashed, the green eyes of the black abyss in the background were squirming, shuffling and clicking against his ears, his throat was crawling with numbers, and his voice was intermittently pleading. "Blood, Lu Ting, deep level, the Ghost King is guarding me, enter the Zero Realm to save, the entrance to the external network, this host, hurry." The screen was distorted, the ghost hand reached out from the edge to grab his shoulder, the green chain dragged, he wailed and the call was cut off, and the black screen continued to murmur, "Ting, home." Mu Xue stared at the afterimage of the video, her pupils dilated in fear and her worship collapsed. "Brother Shen Mo, looks like Dr. Han. Ghost King. Zero Territory Legion. Brother Ting, he asked you to save, God. Are you going?" Her bloody fingers dug into the table, her green-veined forearms burst into tears, and she burst into tears. Lu Ting's eyes were cold and unblinking, the virus hummed but suppressed, calculating the login path, fake door to the external network, sandbox protection. His fingertips danced, and the three of them joined forces. Gu Han entered the command with trembling hands, Mu Xue mechanically clicked to confirm, and the screen rippled to open the virtual door, log into the edge of the zero domain, source code disguise. The vision was distorted, Lu Ting's consciousness was pulled into the virtual, the cold data flow was like a black river, the endless screen walls around him pulsed with green light, and the digital ghost army was full of wax faces and eyeless mouths spitting worms, shuffling and thumping on virtual earthquake waves, and the putrid illusion choked his lungs. The leader of the mini-boss, the Ghost King, appeared, Li Wei's mutant, with a 3-meter-tall wax body and a green crown. The black abyss in the eye socket swallowed light, and he waved his withered claws to summon the tide. "Read you. Hacker soul, the sweetest." The ghost army pounced, the green chain whipped the data flow, Lu Ting ducked, calculated the trajectory for 0.1 seconds, and blasted the pseudo-code with a cold roar. The virus backfired and hit the Ghost King's eye sockets. The Ghost King wailed and leaned back, ripples in the black abyss exploded and green worms eroded themselves, legions collapsed, and green slurry flowed into the river. But the king's claws counterattacked, and the data in Lu Ting's shoulder was torn apart with pain like fire. The buzzing rekindled and his brain exploded. He gritted his teeth and isolated himself in the sandbox. The ultimate pseudocode locked the king's core, the deletion rate was 87%. The Ghost King's wax melted and collapsed, and he yelled "Zero Domain, forever." The screen collapsed, and Lu Ting's consciousness popped up. Reality was sweating through his clothes, and the needle marks on his arms were green veins tingling slightly. Mu Xue glared at him, her eyes rounded and she screamed in admiration, "Brother Ting, you logged in to kill the Ghost King?" The screen went green. Mr. Gu was stunned. "God, the Zero Territory Army was shattered into pieces, your shoulder, the data is injured. Brother Shen Mo can be saved." Gu Han's knees shook and he knocked on the ground. Half of his waxy face was left, and the green light in his eye sockets dimmed in worship. "Boy," he said. "Log in for the first time, fight against the Ghost King and escape." "Impossible. I give you the password, Zero Realm Core, Soul Lock, Way Mirror 13 #, but He suddenly twitched, his leg bones cracked and green exploded, his shuffling steps turned into crawling, his withered hands grabbed the edge of the table and pulled green marks, and his throat grumbled, "Join, the bell is ringing." The old clock in the warehouse ticked furiously, the green digits on the pendulum needle gathered together and turned Li Wei's face into a smile, the wall mirror rippled, and the tide of ghost hands loomed. Lu Ting grabbed the laptop and stood up, glanced at Gu Han with cold eyes, and dragged Mu Xue back. Xue, there is half a shot of inhibitor left, pressed the green vein. But Mu Xue stood frozen in front of the mirror, the green vein in the blood hole in her shoulder stopped beating, she turned her head and smiled without any abnormality, and her pupils reflected in the mirror. Her figure was completely replaced, wax face and cracked mouth, ghost hands stretched out from the mirror and wrapped around her waist, murmuring, "Brother Ting, come and accompany me." Her lips moved in sync with reality, air gelatin stuck to her lungs, the unknown abyss devoured her again, and the crisis suddenly rose like a thunder. The corners of Mu Xue's lips slowly rose, her smile was as stiff as melted wax, the mirror shadow in the depths of her pupils squirmed, and the outline of the waxy face and cleft mouth faintly overlapped. She turned around slowly, her bloody arm dripping with green liquid that corroded the floor. The smell of corpse wax in the air was as thick as glue mist wrapping her throat, and the iron door in the back room of the warehouse creaked like a mockery. Lu Ting's heart sank, and his cold eyes locked on the green veins on her shoulders that were still and not beating. The mutation had devoured the soul, the mirror spirit replacement rate was 0.7% per minute, and he calculated that he would lose control within 3 seconds. Gu Han shuffled to the corner with his knees on his knees, his waxy face half collapsed and his green bones flashing, his withered throat murmuring, "Sweet data, the bell is hungry." The sound of his knee bones cracking and cracking shook the iron table, and the green juice splashing on the wall gathered into a digital insect crawling and chasing Mu Xue's ankles. "Xue, back off!" Lu Ting shouted violently, the needle marks on his arms were on fire again, and his brain was buzzing, but he ignored it, swept her back with one arm and threw her 3 meters away from the mirror. The ghost hand reached out from the mirror to grab it with withered fingers, hissing whip wind leaving green marks in the air. She staggered and bumped into his chest, her bloody lips whispered in sync with the mirror spirit, "Brother Ting, accompany me, Ling family." Her eye mask spread into the black abyss, and her breath sprayed green mist, choking his lungs like acid corrosion. Mu Xue's own pupils flashed and she struggled with fear, her voice doubled and trembled, her worship collapsed. "Brother Ting, my mouth moves on its own. In the mirror, smile with a waxy face, and it feels so cold when I pull on my waist. Save, God. Are you suppressing my green veins?" Her bloody fingers dug at his arm flesh, her tears mixed with the green paste face of worship, her legs were soft and she knelt down to worship, her gaze was like a prayer, fear overcame the change and she suddenly woke up. Lu Ting gritted his teeth and pressed his knee against her lower back to force her to sit on the iron chair. The back room of the warehouse was narrow and windowless. He swept the iron cabinet and smashed the door latch, locking it with a clang. The door panel trembled with green veins crawling through the cracks. "Lock you for 5 points, suppress the shadow." He swung out half a needle of blue agent to prick her jugular vein, and the blue fire burned along the green veins. She screamed and hit the back of the chair, her eyes round with admiration and fear, "Brother Ting. The blue fire biting insect." The mirror shadow retreated. "But the laughter was in my head, God. You lock me quickly, Mr. Gu will look stupid." Gu Han dragged him under the table, his wax eye sockets glowing green. She flashed dimly, and her knees trembled as she groaned in regret and worship, "Boy, mutation has replaced 0.7%, you broke the chain so quickly, it's terrifying. But the bells, the whole city is ticking in sync, she can't hold on." The needle of the old clock swung wildly, the ticking was low and bone-deep like thousands of hearts beating in unison, the wave of ghost hands on the wall mirror subsided but the ripples were pulsing, the air was moldy and rotten with green mist, and the lungs were suppressed like the top of a tomb. Lu Ting ignored Gu Han's shuffling, grabbed the spare laptop and knelt down to see the broken message of the sandbox chain warehouse host. The green light on the screen reflected Mu Xue's huddled figure. Her arms were swollen with blood and her green silk threads were beating again. Her nose was quivering and she smelled the burnt smell of the blue agent. "Brother Mo. Deep in the zero realm. He's waiting for you, God." Fingertips danced with fake code, and the video pop-up window cracked. Shen Mo's hooded figure appeared, the wax on his face melted by 90%, the green code in his eye sockets flashed like a black hole swallowing light, and the green-eyed army shuffled in the black abyss of the Zero Realm in the background. Thumping against his ears, green mist crawled out of the digital worm's throat. His voice was as broken as a bellows and he begged intermittently, "Lu Ting, layered, you kill 87% of the marginal Ghost King, the Deep Legion awakens, core entity server, abandoned laboratory B1. Way Mirror 13 # open soul lock, but, sacrifice." The wave of ghost hands reached out from the edge of the screen to grab his shoulder and drag the green chain, the rancid illusion choked the screen, and he wailed and twisted, "Come in, I will support, the digital army." The screen collapsed into a black screen, and the remaining sound murmured, "Ting, layer." Mu Xue stared at the residual image, her pupils dilated and screamed in fear. She covered her mouth with bloody hands and vomited green liquid, "Brother Shen Mo. Deep Legion. Laboratory B1, Brother Ting, God. Do you understand layering?" Mr. Gu's knees are shaking. Gu Han shuffled to the edge of the table, slapped the broken screen with his wax hand and the green juice splashed, his throat grumbled in regret and trembled, "Boy." Shen Mo's message, "Divine Quick Solution. Level 3 of Zero Domain, Edge Legion, Deep Ghost King Collective, Core Way Mirror Entity. The control room on the top floor of the hospital, the old elevator is straight to B1. I lead the way, but the legs," the bell woke him up. His leg bones were all green and cracked, his knees became low and dragged, green marks were left on the ground with dead fingers like veins contracting, the wax-faced and cracked mouth ensemble ticked and whispered, the air vibrated and suppressed like black clouds pressing over the city, and the roar of the zombies in the distance was faintly approaching from the wind and sand outside the iron door of the warehouse. Lu Ting's cold eyes glanced at Mu Xue's locked chair. She had withdrawn half of the needle to suppress the green veins, but her eyes were dark and the aftermath was abysmal. He trembled with admiration and despair, "Brother Ting, go to the hospital. The living corpses on the streets are shuffling around the city. My green veins are beating again. Don't abandon me, God." He tearing off the iron wire and tying the chair tightly, he said coldly, "Hold on, the blue fire is burning." He pulled Gu Han's wax arm and threw it over his shoulder, and rushed out of the back room with the black car key. Mu Xue screamed and locked the door, "Brother Ting. Jingxiao's brain is ringing, come back quickly." The engine roared and smashed the glass shards to rush into the warehouse. The iron gate of the warehouse was clanged open, the wind and sand in the wilderness hit his face, and the smell of corpse wax was in his face. Green bugs swarmed in the asphalt cracks and chased the tires. The wax on Gu Han's shoulders melted and dripped green slurry and corroded the seat. He shuffled his legs and pushed the accelerator, his voice broken and desperate, "Urban, 5 minutes, the tide of living corpses wakes up with the sound of bells." The green veins in Lu Ting's arms and shoulders were slightly beating and humming, cold fingers were flying in the laptop monitor, the whole city's sirens went off, the sound of the bells penetrated into the ground like the heartbeat of thousands of people, and the ghost on the road stretched out his hand to hit the air and hissed. The black car rushes into the city, and a group of living corpses suddenly appear on the streets, wax faces with cracked mouths, eyeless shuffling, and thousands of feet knocking on the asphalt, green bones and broken bodies surge like a sea, rotten blood and green slurry spurts into the river and corrodes the iron railings, and the afterimages of passers-by kneel down and murmur, "Lu Ting, the data is sweet." Gu Han's waxy face sunken, his green eyes flashing in fear as he worshipped, "Boy, the bell calls the whole city. The road ahead is blocked, God, you can suppress it." The front of the car knocked over 3 corpses and shattered their bones. Green bugs sprayed the windshield, cracking the windshield and blurring the vision. The rear was chasing tires and exploding smoke. Withered claws grabbed the chassis and hissed and curled the iron. Lu Ting gritted his teeth and there was no inhibitor left. He locked eyes with the leader of the living corpse, the green veins in the neck beat at 3.1 Hz, calculated the explosion point, roared and hit Gu Han's shoulder, "Needle." Gu Han shook his hands and threw out the remaining blue agent from his belt. His knees pressed against Gu Han's waist and forced him to turn. The car swerved and hit the iron pole of the streetlight, sparks clanging. The blue needle hit the front wheel of the center of the zombies. The needle exploded with blue fire and burned with green veins. The hissing and burning sound was like the wail of thousands of insects. The leader's wax-faced eye sockets exploded with green spray and rotten slurry, which merged into the river and corroded itself. Zombies knocked out a piece of shuffling chaos and shook the street. Green bones cracked and shattered, and the road was filled with blood for 10 meters. The hallucinatory screams in Mu Xue's warehouse echoed in his mind. He suppressed and ignored them. Gu Han opened his round wax eyes and screamed, "Boy, the needle explodes and the pulse rate explodes. The whole tide is self-eroding, it's shocking. It's impossible to beat the clock of the whole city." The ghost hand of the rearview mirror stretched out from the store mirror, withered fingers whipped the air and caught the tail light and exploded. The wheels crushed green bones and rushed out of the bleeding road. The outline of the hospital appeared in the distance, and the green light pulsating in the mirror window of the white building was like staring at the eye sockets. The engine died and slid into the side door of the hospital. The air was as stinky as lead. The rusty door of the elevator on the top floor creaked open. Gu Han shuffled on his knees to lead the way. He climbed the stairs with his legs exposed, grunting, "Control room. Mirror door source." The ticking clock in the corridor was low and permeating. The wall, the residual shadow of the living corpse, was peering into the hidden mirror. Ting carried Gu Han up to the top. The green veins in his shoulder were injured and the fire was burning, and his brain was buzzing. He glanced at the control room with cold eyes. The iron door was half open, the old host inside was humming and the green screen was pulsing. The large mirror on the wall rippled wildly. The wave of ghost hands evolved, a complete ghost emerged. Li Wei's wax body was 3 meters tall with a green crown. The black abyss in her eye socket swallowed up light and cracked her mouth. She spat out digital worms. Her withered claws swung at Gu Han's ankles. The green chain whipped the iron floor and corroded him. He wailed and was dragged 3 inches into the mirror. "Wei, Rao, help me." Gu Han's waxy face collapsed in fear and turned his head in worship. "God. She is complete, the zero realm overflows, pull my soul." Ting yelled and calculated the ghost's claw track for 0.2 seconds. The laptop through the sandbox chain host, pseudo-coded Wei Mirror 13 hashtag exploded the mirror ripples, the green light ripples froze the blue fire-burning chain, the ghost wailed and leaned back into the black abyss, exploding green insects eroded itself. Gu Han rolled to the ground and twitched, his wax legs cracked and shredded, he dragged himself to a stop, his throat was shattered and he coughed up green liquid in despair. "Boy, the soul is locked, and you are so scared that it will overflow. The final clue, to destroy the core, you need to sacrifice the infected person's consciousness. I, Shen Mo, Xue, upload the soul-locking mirror, break the quantum crystal, or it will last forever." The green light in his eye sockets was half extinguished. He knelt down and knocked on the iron ground with a broken voice of worship. The control room mirror shattered and splashed with green juice, and the ticking of the bell echoed violently throughout the city. Suddenly, the holographic projection of the host exploded, Shen Mo's figure collapsed and emerged, the wax body shattered and the green code danced wildly, the Zero-Domain Legion shuffled in the background and the screen shook, the green eyes of the black abyss surged, and the digital worm in his throat vomited a desperate warning, Ting. The Digital Legion awakens. The Zero-Domain entrance is opened, all overflowing come out, quickly sacrifice. The projection twisted and exploded, the green mist sprayed into the chamber choking the lungs and corroding, the mirror fragments were hidden by ghost hands, the living corpses roared and surged downstairs in the hospital, the crisis was swallowed up like a sea of thunder. Ting's cold eyes locked the afterimage of the projection, the green veins in his arms beat wildly and his brain devoured the soul. The unknown abyss came again and pressed endlessly. Ting locked his cold eyes on the afterimage of the projection, his brain buzzed like thousands of green thorns dancing wildly, and the green veins in his arms jumped and burned into his bones. He calculated the overflow rate of the zero domain, 0.3% of the city's mirror gates expanded per second, and a flood of living corpses engulfed the hospital within 3 minutes. Gu Han's wax body twitched and he knelt down on the iron ground. Green coughed and broke his lips in worship. Boy, B1 core, old elevator back door, quantum crystal bell matchmaker, sacrifice my soul lock way mirror 13 hashtag, God. You will break my leg. Quickly. 70% of the green light in his eye sockets disappeared, the green marks scratched by his withered fingers shrank like a failing pulse, his throat grumbled with despair and admiration, the air congealed and wax choked his lungs, and the roaring tide downstairs shook the walls and made dust fall. Gatekeeper. Lu Ting shouted mercilessly. He knelt on one knee and smashed the iron cabinet in the control room. He pried out the capacitor coil of the old host and snapped it. He blasted the spare laptop sandbox and soldered a homemade pulse generator with pseudocode, Blue Fire Electromagnetic Network. The calculated anti-green pulse frequency was 7.2 GHz. The green screen flashed with residual messages. Shen Mo concluded, layer, sacrifice. He ignored the mental illusion. Li Wei cracked her mouth and murmured, sweet data, into 0. He tore the green cloth of Gu Han's belt and tied it to the capacitor arm. The wire welding contacts sneered and burned his fingers. His psychological game is like a blade. Is it worth sacrificing Gu Han and Shen Mo Mu Xue to cut off his source? The probability of permanent backlash in the zero domain is 87%, but it will not join the city's bells and become a ghost army. He sneered and said, it's worth it. He grabbed the elevator key card and stabbed the hidden door on the back wall, creaking open the black hole elevator shaft. Moldy wind and green mist sprayed his face like acid-soaked skin, and the living corpses shuffling downstairs were looming at the bottom of the stairs. Gu Han dragged his knees to the door, his wax legs shattered and squirmed, his withered claws slapped the iron door and locked it, his throat shattered and he screamed in fear, boy, pulse artifact. You welded so fast that you broke my green chain in an instant, it's terrifying. But in the B1 restricted area, the bell summoned by the supernatural, I guard, the soul lock is waiting for you. His wax face collapsed and green bones flashed, his eyes spread into black abyss, and he turned to stare at the black well of the elevator. Lu Ting jumped into the elevator cage, his arm pulsar humming with a blue arc. He pressed the B1 rust button, and the iron cage crashed down. The green veins of the wall lamp flashed wildly, reflecting the afterimage of his wax face. His brain exploded with hallucinations. Mu Xue curled up in the warehouse and screamed, Brother Ting is smiling in front of you. The elevator rattled to the bottom, and the black door creaked open in the B1 restricted area, the abandoned laboratory. The air was dead and the smell of wax was as thick as a coffin seal. Rivers of green slurry on the ground corroded cement cracks. Digital insects squirmed in the cracks of the wall and faintly emitted green mist. The old clock ticked low in the distance and rustled with dust. The iron door at the end of the windowless corridor was half hidden and pulsed with green light. Li Wei murmured, data is sweet, home, in her mind. Lu Ting swept his eyes coldly to pick up the broken pipe and welded the pulse trigger, and the psychological game reignited. Gu Han's gatekeeper confidence rate was 62%, and Mu Xue's green veins jumped back to catch up with a probability of 41%, going straight into the core to destroy the quantum crystal, sacrificing the front pressure to backfire. He whispered to himself, hacker life, Bo. He rushed forward into the corridor, stepping on the green slurry on the rotten floor with his shoes. Digital ghosts burst out from the cracks in the wall and crawled out, a wax face with no eyes and a cracked mouth spitting out insects, a green bone withered claw whip that hissed in the air and scratched the neck. He calculated the orbit to sidestep for 0.1 seconds, and the pulsar pressed the blue arc net and fired. The blue fire burns the green chain, the ghost trembles and wails, the black abyss eye sockets erupt with green mist, the cracks in the wall collapse, sealing the insect tide, the lingering sound whispers, lock. Way 13 hashtag, the the corridor trembles and the green pulp river flows backward, choking the rotten skin on the ankles. He was panting heavily, the green veins in his arms were beating wildly and fire was spreading to his shoulders, and he was sniffing the smell of burnt corpses to calm his mind. Gu Han worshipped God Pulse. The tide is out. In an imaginary voice, but the real roar upstairs was faint. Pushing the iron door into the ruins of the laboratory, the table is overturned and files are flooding, the screen is shattered and the green screen is pulsating, reflecting the 3-meter-long crown of Li Wei's wax body. The quantum crystal of the old clock in the corner is buzzing and ticking violently, and the green light of the crystal swallows dust like a hungry black hole. Lu Ting knelt down to pick up the yellow paper from the file, and flipped through the record with his fingers, jingling project log. 10 years ago, the black hacker Gu Han summoned the supernatural bells and integrated AI quantum nerves. Li Wei volunteered to upload the Guardian, touching an unknown source, and the digital ghost army overflowed. Han Zhao's first bridge, virus ghost code version 3.7 carrier, Zhong Media Yong summoned a wave of living corpses. His heart sank, Gu Han's creator. The psychological game explodes, the trust rate of allies turning into enemies drops sharply by 12%, and the necessity of sacrificing his soul lock is 99%, but the illusion of guarding is delayed. The ticking bell suddenly roared like thunder, and the afterimage of Han Xiao appeared in front of the clock. The green skeleton shuffled on his knees, the waxy face was half collapsed, the eye sockets flashed green, and the digital worms in his throat spat out intermittently, Lu Ting. Gu Han. Create. Summon the supernatural. Zhong Yuan. He sold me. Blue Needle Legacy. Broken Crystal. Han Zhao's withered claws slapped the face of the clock, green juice splashed, her pupils collapsed in fear and worshipped. God is terrifying, you pulse retreat scene ghost, Gu Han, double face, B1 core, back bell, sacrifice his soul. The afterimage twitched and the green veins exploded and cracked the edge of the clock. A low ticking sound echoed. The air vibrated with green mist, wrapping around his throat and pressing his lungs like a lead seal. Lu Ting's cold eyes locked on the record. His brain was buzzing and Gu Han shuffled and laughed, boy, sweet. He suppressed his anger and calculated, Gu Han sold Han Xiao to confirm, Soul Lock Wei Mirror 13 hashtag turned on the crystal destruction, sacrifice him first. Suddenly, there was a loud bang at the back door, and Mu Xue shuffled in. Her waxy arms were swollen and the green silk threads were jumping again and the blood holes were expanding. Her face was scarred with blood and green veins were crawling up her cheeks like tears. 90% of the black pupils were replaced by mirror spirits, the wax on her lips had melted and she smiled and whispered seductively, Brother Ting, home, Ling Yu Tian, drag with me, Zhong hungry. Her knees were weak and she chased him for 3 meters with traces of green liquid. She struggled and screamed, Brother Ting. The locked chair is broken. I climbed the warehouse door. The green veins bite my waist. The mirror pulls me. God crushes my shadow. Her bloody fingers dug into the ground and her broken armor worshipped her. Her leg bones were green and she was dragging around. The mutation replacement rate was 1.2% per minute. Lu Ting's heart was like a knife, and he was playing a psychological game, save her from using up the blue agent, or sacrifice her to cut off her source. Lang Roar pulled her wax arm and threw it over his shoulder, and the blue arc of the pulse device pressed against her green veins and burned for a moment. She screamed and fell back against the wall, and dust hit her face. Her eyes were full of fear and admiration, Brother Ting, the blue electric biting insect. Retired, but my brain Li Wei smiled, Gu Hanchuang. The afterimage of the Korean doctor said it is true, God, you are two-faced. Lu Ting ignored the sound of Gu Han's shuffling upstairs, and carried Mu Xue to the hidden door behind the old clock. The moldy wind carried the bell's wax smell and smelled like a tomb. In the core room inside the door, the giant quantum crystal clock buzzed with green light and pulsed. Digital ghosts crawled through the cracks in the wall, and the air hissed at the neck with a withered claw whip. He pressed the pulsar violently and the blue net exploded, the ghosts of the burning tide ate away the wall and collapsed, the crystal bell ticked violently and the ground cracked and the green river surged. Mu Xue dragged her shoulders and whispered in admiration and fear, God pull strike 2. The ghost scene retreats, Brother Ting, are you welding the magic weapon to cover the restricted area? Her wax fingers dug into the flesh of his arm, and he struggled in the aftermath of the black abyss. The air was scorched green and the mist choked his lungs to stabilize his fighting spirit. Lu Ting knelt in front of the crystal clock. The laptop sandbox chain crystal green code, the pseudocode Wei mirror 13 hashtag exploded to test, the soul-eating phantom Li Wei's crown floated, eternal. In his mind, and he calculated the frequency of Gu Hanhun needed to open the lock. He roared with mental determination, come up here, sacrifice. The clock face suddenly ripples and shakes wildly, and the hologram reflects Shen Mo. 90% of the hooded wax body was shattered. The green-eyed legion of the deep black abyss in the zero realm surrounded him and the screen shook with thousands of feet. The digital insect throat crawled and spewed out green mist to wrap around him. The tide of ghost hands pulled the green chain into the abyss. He screamed and twisted and begged, Lu Ting, the collective of deep ghost kings, the legions are awakening and are overflowing. The B1 core is about to sacrifice, I can't hold on, Ting. Shen Mo eyes green code bursts into the screen, and the legion's mouth roars and ticks in sync. Zhong Jing buzzes with green light and swallows the room like a sea. Mu Xue stares at the clock and screams, breaking down and worshipping, Brother Shen Mo. The legion is surrounding, Brother Shen Ting, save. Can't the pulse suppress the deep layer? Lu Ting's cold fingers flew with his pen and decoded the frequency, the green veins in his arms devoured the brain, and the buzz couldn't suppress the phantom tide, and the crisis pressed the endless abyss. Lu Ting's laptop buzzed, and Shen Mo's message flashed again, zero domain entrance. Abandon the laboratory's external network. Hurry. But Gu Han suddenly twitched, his face melted, and his eye sockets were green. He wailed and turned to stare at Mu Xue, join, her data is easy to read. Withered hands rushed to the back seat, and the green chain dragged. Mu Xue screamed and hugged Lu Ting, her eyes widened with admiration and fear, Brother Ting, he has changed. Backlash, Zero Zone summons. There was a scuffle in the car, the unknown abyss opened again, the virus spread like a black tide swallowing the city, Lu Ting calmly held the laptop, his anger suppressed the buzz of the virus, and calculated the trajectory of the backlash, the war was about to begin. The quantum crystal bell buzzed like the heart of a beast beating violently, ripples of green light swallowed the entire core room, digital insects crawled in the cracks in the wall, the wax face cracked, and the black abyss without eye socket stared at Lu Ting's ankles, rivers of green pulp and rotten skin emitting white smoke. The blue arc of the pulsar on his arm flickered and hummed. The iron pipe clanged against the edge of the crystal, preparing to break the lock. His brain was buzzing with Li Wei's crown murmuring, sweet, sacrifice, calculating that Gu Han's soul lock frequency must match 87%. Mu Xue curled up and hugged his leg, picking at his flesh with her wax fingers and screaming with tears mixed with green liquid, Brother Ting. Crystal swallow, feet, the insect swarm is back. Brother Shen Mo's picture is shattered, my brain is holding my hand and my waist is hurting, my God, can't you hold it down? Her eyes are black and flashing, her green veins are swollen and her arms are swelling, and her nose is dripping with sour acid. Her body is filled with fear and worship, and her knee bones are broken and trembling. Roaring waves exploded at the entrance of the stairs, and living corpses shuffled and cracked the ground. Gu Han dragged himself low, squirming and groaning, boy, soul lock, open, his waxy face collapsed, green bones flashed, and the black abyss expanded. Withered claws slapped the iron door and the clang of the lock reverberated. Green mist sprayed from the crack of the door like a coffin opening, and the stench of corpse wax pressed like a lead seal in the lungs. Shen Mo's holographic clock face twisted and screamed, Lu Ting. The legions of the abyss are pulling my legs. The Ghost Kings are collectively awakening. Zero domain login. Hurry. Green liquid exploded on the screen, Shen Mo's hood and wax body shattered, digital insect throats crawled out and green mist wrapped around his shoulders, and the black abyss green-eyed legion behind them roared and clicked simultaneously, and dust fell from the earthquake chamber simultaneously. Lu Ting locked his laptop sandbox with cold eyes, psychological game lightning. Gu Han's double-sided dragging time signal rate was 8%, he directly logged into the zero domain to destroy the core server. Shen Mo Mu Xue's sacrifice rate was 92%, and the whole city's bell reversal value. The sea of green fog swelled up to his knees, and he roared, tearing apart the VR helmet's spare coil and welding crystal interface, burning his fingers and smelling like meat. Log in. Mu Xue's eyes widened with fear and she screamed in fear, Brother Ting is forced by VR. The Zero Realm Deep Legion. Are you planning to enter the Soul War? Pulse to me. She grabbed the blue arc of the pulse device with her wax hands and hugged her chest with a low voice. The phantom tide, the VR helmet buckled the brain with cold electrodes piercing the nerves like a network of needles, and the black vortex in the field of vision twisted and fell to the edge of the zero zone. The green code rain poured down at the junction of reality and reality, and the afterimage on the screen had thousands of ghost faces. Li Wei murmured, home. He calculated the login frequency 7.2 GHz pseudocode Wei mirror 13 #burst, the 3-meter wax body crown of the remaining body of the Edge Ghost King appeared, and the green vein whip in the black abyss eye socket hissed and grabbed the soul. The depth of the zero domain explodes. The endless sea of green light in the black abyss is churning, the army of digital ghosts is surging with millions of wax faces, the shuffling and thumping virtual earth is cracking the green slime river, and the roar of the bells is shaking the soul. Shen Mo's half-ghost hooded wax body hung in the air, his green bone arms shattered and withered claws slashed at each other, and the digital throat worm spit out green mist to protect his neck. He twisted and begged, Lu Ting. You logged in quickly. The Legion awakened the collective consciousness. The core of the Ghost King summoned, to join forces to kill. Shen Mo's green code exploded and he turned to stare at Lu Ting's projection, his wax face worshipping in fear-intertwined screams. Pseudo-coded micromirror presses the edge, I can hold on deep for 8 seconds, God, you are sandbox welding virtual pulse. Lu Ting sneered and suppressed his soul. The legions howled and burst into the black abyss, green juice sprayed into the void like a rain of blood, and the dragging tide retreated hundreds of meters away from the green river to seal the seam. Shen Mo opened his green eyes and worshipped and screamed, virtual version of God Pulse. The burning legion receded in an instant. Lu Ting, you welded the artifact to cross the boundary and pressed deep. His half-ghost claw whipped the air to chop the flanking ghost face, the wax leg shattered and dragged to help the battle, the digital insect throat retreated 30% of the green mist, smelling the charred wax stink to stabilize the soul. Lu Ting rushed forward, the green code rain was dazzling, his brain entity was buzzing and the illusion of Mu Xue was shouting, Brother Ting, zero domain sweetness. The pulse rate of the Ghost King's core rose sharply, and he joined Shen Mo in a double attack. The blue net burned to the left, Shen Mo's right claw shattered into wax. The Ghost King's 3-meter forwardly Wei's mutant body split its mouth and spat out a swarm of insects at the neck. He flashed for 0.1 seconds and hit the crown with an iron fist, and the green crystal exploded. The Ghost King stiffly whipped his crown into pieces and the green light spread. The roar of the army's back row shook the cracks in the void. Shen Mo roared with fighting spirit, behead. God. Lu Ting predicts the trajectory accurately, pressed the abyss again. But suddenly, the ghost hands from the bottom of the black abyss violently pulled Shen Mo's wax legs in with 10,000 claws, and the green chain locked the numbers on the shoulders. With the insect in his throat, he screamed, twisted and collapsed in fear, Lu Ting. The abyss pulled me, sacrifice to hold the door, destroy the core server. Ting, God. Shen Mo's green eyes exploded with green liquid spraying onto the screen, and his half-ghost body shattered into pieces and fell into the abyss, swallowed up by thousands of ghosts. His wails echoed and ridiculed like heartbreaking thunder. Lu Ting's heart sank and he roared coldly, "Shen Mo, it's worth it." The blue net shot wildly at Feng Yuan's mouth, and the gray code collapsed. The calculated path went straight to the core server, and the sea of green light poured down and rotted the virtual body. The zero-domain core server emerged, a giant digital ghost body with a 100-meter wax body throne, a faceless head with a green-coated whirlpool swallowing billions of souls, a black abyss arm stretching out a quantum crystal clock, a pulsating ticking roar that shook the whole area. The virus murmured like 10,000 mouths in unison, "Eternal sacrifice." Zhou Huanliwei's ghostly face made a wave of worship and knelt down to the green pulp river to donate blood. Lu Ting knelt down on the sandbox and blasted the pseudo-code Wei Mirror 13 hashtag at full power. The virtual pulsar blue fire network fired 3 consecutive shots to burn the guards. Mu Xue's virtual clone suddenly appears. Her waxy face was streaked with blood and green veins crawled across her cheeks, her pupils were completely enlarged and replaced by black abyss. She shuffled closer and whispered seductively, "Brother Ting, my home is sweet. I'm hungry with you." Her green arms were swollen and her silk whip whipped the air to hiss and scratch the soul, and her breath was spraying green mist that choked her weak lungs and rotted her lungs. Lu Tingtong's heart shrank like a knife, and Mu Xue's body was weak on the knees, dragging the green liquid leaving traces of it for 5 meters. Her own shadow struggled and screamed, "Brother Ting. The mirror pulls my soul. Li Wei replaces. God kills me." Her bloody fingers dug into the ground to worship her, and her leg bones trembled wildly with green cracks. The replacement rate was 99%. The psychological game explodes. Is it worth killing her to cut off her source? The cold roar of the blue net violently pressed the burning green veins, she screamed and leaned back against the empty wall, dust hit her face, the wax body was stiff and the green mist eroded and shattered itself, the afterimage whispered in fear and worship, "Brother Ting, kill the god, sweet family," turned into a river of green juice and disappeared. Lu Ting gritted his teeth and suppressed his tears. He calculated the peak pulse rate of the crystal bell, the weakness of the virus itself, and said, "Destroy." The external Guhan communication clock face hologram exploded. The wax body bent down at the door and patted the floor with withered claws. The dark eyes turned green and all the lights disappeared, and the throat roared, "Boy!" The army of living corpses broke through the B1 door. Bang bang and swallowed the laboratory. Mu Xue curled up and pulsed and couldn't suppress the abnormality, so locked my frequency and sacrificed me to open the crystal. Guhan's wax face collapsed and the green bones flashed in fear and regret. The stairs roared and shook the wall with dust. The old ghost breaks the door. The living corpse drags my leg. Brother Ting's Zero Realm Divine Battle Message. The pulse blue arc biting insect retreats. But the mirror is restored. The giant ghost of the virus laughed and roared like thunder, "To destroy me, you need to sacrifice your consciousness, to lock the Zero Realm forever." Sweet Data Master. The green code vortex sucked Lu Ting's body, and the black abyss stretched his waist and the green chain devoured the bones and burned. He hesitated and calculated the sacrifice rate, 99% source destruction, 1% self-trap. The brain was buzzing, Mu Xue Shen Mo was screaming, the sea of green fog swallowed up the vision, and the abyss of despair was coming again, overwhelming the endless fear. The roar of the stairs is approaching B1, Gu Han shuffles and whispers, "Boy, soul lock." The cracks in the digital insect wall are crawling again, the quantum crystal pulsates faster and the whole city bells roar. Lu Ting's psychological game is finalized. Gu Han's creation must be sacrificed first to destroy the crystal, go deep into the depths to save Shen Mo. Mu Xue suppresses the alien defender. The blue arc of the pulse device was still low, and he roared violently and smashed the iron pipe on the edge of the crystal, preparing to break the lock. The sea of green mist swallowed his ankles, and the unknown supernatural summons came again. The whirlpool of the green code whirled wildly like a meat grinder with thousands of insects, hissing and biting the edge of Lu Ting's body. The faceless head on the throne of the 100-meter wax body virus body was split open and millions of green eyes were staring at it. The black abyss arms stretched out and the green chains were like live iron whips whipping the waist bones. The crackling sound echoed in the abyss of the zero realm. The ticking bells and thunderous sounds synchronized with the heartbeat and rioted, crushing the soul. Billions of remnant souls of the Legion were reborn from the cracks in the ashes, and the wax faces surged again, dragging and cracking, the ground cracked, and the river of green pulp spurted back. The rotten air was sour and pungent. Shen Mo fell into the abyss and wailed, echoing like a knife scraping his brain. Mu Xue cloned and chopped the green juice phantom, and then condensed and whispered, "Brother Ting." Tian Jiayong. Lu Ting's body sank to his knees in the green river. White smoke was rising from his skin and the smell of rotten flesh choked his lungs. His brain was buzzing, his cold eyes were locked, his body was pulsing, and the calculated sacrifice rate was 99%, destroying the body and sinking 1%. Hesitation was like eternal catastrophe. The black whirlpool pulled the green chain around his waist, bone-gnawing fire, and the entire field of vision was engulfed in green. Li Wei, with endless grimaces, murmured, "Sacrifice, lock the house." And pressed the abyss of despair again. The holographic Gu Han's wax face bursts out of the clock face. The iron gate clanged outside, and the tide of living corpses with 10,000 claws smashed into pieces. The green mist sprayed like a coffin, exploding corpse wax, and the stench of thick-pressured chambers was filled with lead. He lay low and dragged his withered claws, scratching the ground with green marks on his throat. He groaned with fear and regret, and screamed, "Boy!" Soul lock frequency 7.2. The explosives are in place and the B1 crystal medium is detonated simultaneously to destroy the source. Sacrifice me to open. Double-sided selling Han Xiao and Li Wei regret. God, you are welding. Roaring feet shook the wall, dust fell from the river, and the body swelled. Mu Xue's knees turned rotten. She hugged the pulsar, her blue arc hummed, her wax arms trembled, her green veins pulsed again, her blood hole expanded and dripped green juice. She screamed and worshipped, "Gu Lao Gui explosives. Brother Ting's soul-sucking zero zone. The mirror hand pulled my waist thousands of times. God synchronized." Mu Xue screamed in admiration, "Brother Ting summons Gu Shi, the virus sucks you. God wants to sacrifice your life." Gu Han shuffled outside the door and approached with withered claws, scratching the door with green marks for pulse, "Boy." Frequency 7.2. On. The tide of living corpses hit the door with a clang of broken iron, and the green bone claw seemed sprayed and choked. Lu Ting was undecided about the real and virtual realms, and the black whirlpool pulled the ghosts into their mouths for thirst. The ghost hand in the mirror suddenly transformed into thousands of tentacles and exploded. Green-veined silk-like wax arms stretched from the bottom of the whirlpool to Lu Ting's empty leg and dragged it into the black abyss. The ghost King Li Wei's crown shattered and a 3-meter wax body emerged. Green eyes widened in panic and screamed, "Hacker, soul lock opened. Source, destroyed." The green juice on the neck of the tentacle whip is choking and biting, and the army's rebirth wave stagnated and retreated for 1,000 meters. The ceiling seams of the green river collapsed. He sneered, pressed his soul, buzzed forward, and charged at the blue net with 3 consecutive bursts of fire. 10,000 tentacles stiffened and self-exploded, and the green mist exploded into the void. The smell of burnt wax filled the air. Mu Xue's holographic clone was dragging with weak knees, wax face was reappeared with blood marks, green veins crawling into the black abyss, fully enlarged mirror spirit replaced the whispering temptation, 3 meters away, green arms, swollen whip, air hissing, soul-grabbing breath, green mist, sour, Brother Ting. I'm hungry with Zhong, but Lu Tingtong's heart-shrinking knife twisted instantly to replace the virtual and real chain, and the blue fire net pressed down to burn the green veins. She screamed and leaned back against the empty wall, and the gray and wax body collapsed and the green juice disappeared. The afterimage whispered in fear and worship, God, Zhan Jingyuan, Ting Yong Tian. Outside Gu Han's door, the holographic wax body lay low and withered claws slapped the green bones. His eyes flashed and turned to green light, his throat was extinguished and he roared in worship. He was shocked, the boy's soul lock welding is so fast. The explosive pulse is synchronized. The crystal vector insect bites. I regret selling Li Wei Han. God you. The army of living zombies broke through the door and the green bone claws seamed with spray and roared. Swallowing the dust in the room, Mu Xue's body screamed, hugging her knees, her wax legs leaving traces of green pulp, dragging her pulse device, her blue arc biting insect retreated by 20%, and she knelt down in worship. Brother Ting's mirror and hands are all burning. Gu's explosion is synchronized with divine calculations, mutation pressure, divine pressure. Her black eyes flashed back, green silk cheeks shriveled, knee bones trembled, tears of worship mixed with green juice. Lu Ting made a virtual body and used the blue network to cover the throne of his body. The heart pulse rate of the calculated weakness tar green insect exploded at 7.2 GHz. The Sollocked frequency full power pseudocode Wei Mirror 13 hashtag was shot into the quantum crystal bell media and the green crystal cracked and the sound shook the whole area. The virus body's 100-meter-long wax body and throne violently shook, the green code vortex reversed and devoured itself, the faceless head cracked and billions of green eyes stared in fear, all exploding with green slurry like stars, the black abyss arms and tentacles stiffened and ate each other, the wax skin collapsed, the green river flowed backwards, the sealing abyss mouth gray code collapsed, no, the sacrifice lasts forever. Hacker channel eat my source. Regret. Li Wei's family is shattered. The remains of Li Wei's Ghost King's core body and crown exploded with green light ripples and black abyss. The eye sockets were broken into a rain of green juice and blood. The army's billions of wax faces burst out in wailing, dragging their feet in a wave of self-corroding green mist. The void was filled with the stench of burnt corpses. The ticking of bells stopped violently like a heart bursting. Gu Han's holographic eyes widened, his eyes twitched, his green bone wax face twitched, he screamed in remorse, God Welder. The crystal explosion pulse crosses the border. The virus itself is defeated by autophagy. Boy, you, the god of terror presses on the source and regrets my two sides. He dragged his withered claws, stingy iron, and green marks on his low-lying throat. The digital insect spit out green mist to protect his neck. The green bone claws of the living corpse swarmed Mu Xue's legs. She screamed in worship and pressed the blue arc of the pulse device frantically. The quantum crystal bell in the core room of the entity buzzed, rioting, green light rippled back and swallowed the cracks in the wall. Digital insects swarmed and ate their own wax. The face was cracked without eye sockets, the black abyss exploded, green juice spurted out, and ash fell from the ceiling. The iron pipe clanged and smashed against the crystal edge, breaking the green pulp and rotting the seam. Mu Xue crouched her knees, widened her pupils, screamed with fear and admiration. Brother Ting's soul lock exploded. The crystal worms retreated. The shadows of the mirror hands disappeared completely. Old Gu's wax body roared in regret. The zombies were stiff. The green veins in her wax arms were swollen and the threads were all withered. The blood holes were turning gray and her breath was blocked. Gu Han's door was broken and dragged into the sea of living corpses. The wax body lay low and withered claws slapped the ground. The green bones flashed and his pupils turned to green light. Finally, he shouted, simultaneous explosion, source destruction. Boy God, worth it. The explosive pulse clicked and the green crystal media detonated. The sea of green light poured down and rot filled the whole room. The gray mist filled the room and filled the room with the pungent smell of burnt wax. The hospital B1 wall cracked, the ground collapsed, and the edges roared. The aftermath shocked the stairs, and all feet were frozen and turned green. The electrodes of Lu Ting's VR helmet stabbed his brain and buzzed, and the phantom tide receded. The black whirlpool in his vision was twisted and he pulled out the falling entity. His knees were weak and he was gasping for breath. The green mist left his knees and scoffed. His cold eyes locked the laptop sandbox pseudocode way mirror 13 hashtag gray seal and disconnected. The brain calculation self-trap rate was 0.8%, stabilizing his soul without ever locking it. The virus itself collapsed, the green ripple expanded, and the entire zero domain collapsed. The legions wailed and remained silent forever. Li Wei's remaining words, regret. Ping Shen. Echoed and disappeared. Mu Xue fell on her knees and hugged his leg. She dug her flesh with wax fingers and burst into tears and worshipped. Brother Ting pulled off his helmet and returned to heaven. The virus originated from the crystal-eating explosion. The mirror spirit has completely retreated. My soul is pressing down with divine pressure. Gu's sacrifice is worth. Brother Shen Mo is worth. You will destroy the gods forever. Her eyes were black and her veins were green, her arms were covered with gray and her knees were firmly worshipped. She kissed the back of his hand and worshipped with a mixture of blood, tears, and green liquid. She collapsed from fear and was trembling with bliss. But suddenly, the pulsation of the remaining core of the quantum crystal clock accelerated and buzzed like an animal's heart beating again, with green light flashing slightly. The whole city's bells chimed in unison, ticking and thundering. The outer wall of the hospital in the distance shook with dust. Living corpses shuffled and thumped on the stairs. The green bone claw cracks and the spray choking were approaching the depths of B1. Lu Ting's heart sank and he roared coldly and tore out the cord of his laptop. The source of destruction is not over yet. The whole city is reversed. Mu Xue's eyes widened and she screamed in fear. Brother Ting's pulse is back. The whole city is, the zombie wave is coming again. God, please fight again. Gu Han's holographic wax body was broken into green paste and he whispered regret, boy, the legacy, escape. B1's earth cracked, the green river swelled, and the iron gate on the side collapsed, shattering thousands of claws, and the green mist swallowed the sight of death again. The sea of green mist expanded like a corpse's alveoli and swallowed up the edge of B1's collapse. Iron filings clattered down and the pungent smell of iron reverberated in the gray mist. The remaining core of the quantum crystal bell buzzed like a heartbeat and the green light rippled and shimmered. The cracks in the wall cracked and green juice spurted back. The sour smell of rotten air overwhelmed the top. The city's bells were ticking and thundering. The tall buildings in the distance were shaking and falling to the ground. The remaining corpses on the stairs were clanking and shuffling. Thousands of feet were shaking. Green bones and claws were cracking. Mist spray was approaching. The cracking sound was like an animal chewing bones. Mu Xue curled up and hugged Lu Ting's leg. Wax fingers were digging into the flesh. Blood marks and green slurry were mixed in her eyes. The shadow of the dark abyss shivered and shivered. She collapsed and worshipped, Brother Ting. The whole city roared in unison. Jumping again. The sea of green mist swallowed the gods and my knees weakened. The tide of living corpses came again, and my soul couldn't suppress the change. Her knee bones were reset, but the edges of her green-veined arms were slightly swollen, and her breath was suffocating with green mist. Lu Ting's knees were soft and he was wheezing. The green fog was on his knees. White smoke was coming out of his rotten skin. His brain was buzzing. The self-trap rate was 0.8%. His soul was steady. His cold eyes were locked. His laptop cord was torn. When he pulled out the electrodes of his VR helmet and stabbed his brain, he was bleeding and dripping with ash. His heart was heavy. Taizhuo roared to suppress the phantom tide. The destruction of the source has not yet been completed. The crystal fragments hooked the whole city. Crawl. His semi-conscious state was as weak as a flickering candle. He dug his withered claws into the ground and dragged green marks through the gray mist. The laptop clamped the ARM sandbox pseudocode way mirror. The 13 #gray seal is disconnected and the full power welding wire is prepared for a new battle. The green mist is choking and biting. The vision is blurred. The clocks are ticking in sync with the heartbeat. The riot is crushing the soul. Mu Xue hugs her legs, wax arms and green silk, jumps again and moans in despair. Brother Ting is half conscious. Gu Laohua is broken into green paste. Shen Mo's abyss value. Are you still going to climb to the source of your divine pressure? Her eyes widened, the black abyss subsided, the green veins faded, the cheeks shivered. She worshipped and kissed the back of his hand with blood and tears mixed with green paste. She worshipped endlessly. The iron gate clanged, and the tide of living corpses with 10,000 claws smashed into pieces. The green mist exploded like a corpse in a coffin. The stench of wax filled the lungs, and the remains of Gu Han's wax body surged into the green slurry. He transformed into a living corpse with his withered claws and slapped the green bones of Tika. His eyes flashed into the black abyss, and his green eyes fully expanded. Panic turned to a ferocious smile, roaring and regret mixed with each other. Boy, the divine welding value, but the source of the residual hook, the eternal home, is blocking you. His green bone legs were broken and he was lying low, crawling and dragging the iron. Dust and withered claws dug into the wall, and green marks stretched out. The river of blood mixed with green slurry, the waxy face collapsed without eye sockets, the black abyss exploded with green juice, the scent of sour rot sprayed out, the skin of Lu Ting's face rotten and white smoke emitted, and the entrance to the core room collapsed, blocking the road. The green river swelled, and only the cracks in the iron ladder remained. Mu Xue screamed and collapsed, hugging her knees with wax legs, leaving traces of green paste, dragging the pulse device, pressing the blue arc crazily, and worshipping others. Her eyes widened in fear. Gu Laochuan's corpse is blocking the road. The green bone claw's withered throat roared to God's regret. How can Brother Ting fight if he is half conscious? She knelt down on her knees, her blood mixed with green paste worshipping her, and she burst into tears and trembled. Her breath was choked by the green mist, and her lungs were burning. Lu Ting's half-conscious brain was buzzing and his cold eyes were locked on Gu Han's green bone core, which was beating at a residual frequency of 7.2 GHz. With his withered fingers, he explored the blue needle tube of the final inhibitor left by Han Shao, the last dose between the yellow paper in the B1 log. The needlepoint stabbed the veins in his arm and swollen with blue liquid. The blue liquid sneered into the blood. The fire burned like thousands of insects eating bones. The strength was weak and the residual candle was instantaneous. The blue fire was violent. He roared and tore the iron ladder. The green river sprayed back into the body. The blue arc electric grid exploded. The green mist burned. The smell of burnt wax filled the air. Get out. Overwhelm my green bones. I regret selling Han Liwei's double face value. No. Lu Ting dragged forward and hit Gu Han with a half-conscious blue fire fist. The green crystal cracked in the chest, and the green liquid spurted out like a rain of blood. His iron arms locked his neck and withered claws gnawed at each other. The green silk whip and waist bones cracked and hurt like fire. His vision was swallowed by green swirls, but his trajectory was 0.02 seconds. His side iron fist pierced the core of the green worm's heart veins, exploding into a river of green juice and sealing the abyss. Gu Han's wax body was violently shaken, the green bones were stiff, and the wax skin was devouring each other. Large pieces of wax skin were collapsed, the black abyss was extinguished, the throat was shattered, and he was worshipping in despair. The core of the divine thorn, the source hook has cut off my eternal silence. He let go of his withered claws and dragged him across the grey ground and the seal of the green river. He was frozen forever in the grey mist. Mu Xue's knees were weak and she dragged her to catch up with the wax finger. She screamed and worshipped and released the bliss. Brother Ting's blue needle explodes with divine power. The green worm that stabs Gu's core explodes. The living corpse blocks the way and crushes the divine pressure. My arms, green silk, are completely grey, and my soul is sealed away. She hugged her waist, her wax legs, her green pulp, stopped the bleeding hole, became grayer, sealed her pupils, black abyss, shed tears, kissed her arms, and her arms, blood and tears, mixed with green pulp, shivered, and her breath was fresh, grey mist, light rotten smell subsided. On the verge of collapse, the iron door shattered and the sea of green mist forced the iron ladder to tremble with dust. Lu Ting dragged Mu Xue out of the corridor of B1 Abyss Hospital, and the green skeleton corpse shuffled. The sound of the bell gradually became chaotic and faint, and the whole city was weakened by distant thunder. The afterimage of Mu Xue reappeared in the mirror. At the end of the corridor, in the green juice residue of the broken mirror, Ghost Hand stretched out her waist and dragged her into the black abyss, muttering, "Brother Ting. Tianjia Yong Jing is hungry," she screamed and collapsed, wax arms, green veins, swollen eyes, black abyss, flashing mirror spirit replaced the 3 meters green arm, swollen whip, air hissing, soul-grabbing breath, green mist, sour rot. Lu Ting's cold eyes locked the mirror and violently tore off the iron pipe and smashed all the mirrors. Green juice exploded into the void and the stench of burnt wax filled the air. His hand stiffened and ate and rotted, sealing the seam of the mirror. He smashed the old clock with his iron fist, ticking his face and cracking the green crystal. The sound of the bell was as violent as his heart was dying. The afterimage of Mu Xue screamed and fell back, hitting the empty wall with dust and dust. The wax body collapsed and the river of green juice collapsed. Her pupils shrunk and she turned to clarity. She worshipped with fear and whispered, "Brother Ting smashed the mirror and bell, the pressure of God. The ghost of the mirror is completely burned, and my soul is suppressed and will be sweet forever, God." She knelt down on the ground with blood and tears mixed with green pulp, worshipping God, trembling and releasing endless bliss. The green fog in the corridor recedes, the grey mist clears the lungs, the rotten smell of the bells fades, and the whole city gradually stops. The outer walls of the high-rise buildings tremble, and the dust falls to the ground. It is as quiet as death. The fragments of Shen Mo's consciousness pop out, and the electric sandbox flashes with blue arcs and whistles. The remnant soul of a hooded hacker is projected with a wax face, shattered green bones, arms with withered claws, chopped off each other, digital worm throats, green fog neck guards, and the eternal silence of the abyss. The ultimate hacker instruction is taught, Ting, zero domain sacrifice, the ultimate code, Ghost Lock 7.2 #eternal sealing, the abandoned laboratory entity source entrance pseudocode welding full power cross-border destruction core eternal silence, rapid prediction. Projection pupils black abyss green light extinguishing throat shattering roar film by was shocked, mutual trust in the burning army, you are the god of terror to suppress the source value. The blue arc's residual light was cut off and the laptop was buzzing steadily. Lu Ting sneered and tore up the soul-suppressing brain lightning game calculation trajectory line, Shen Mo's value, the laboratory hook is permanently sealed. Outside the hospital, the daylight is dazzling. On the edge of the receding green fog, the city's bells continue to ring, as weak as panting. The remaining tide of living corpses drags stagnant green bones and claws. The mist sprays to stop the dust. The ground is covered with blood. The shadows of passers-by in the windows of high-rise buildings in the distance are rounded. Live broadcast on mobile phones screams in shock and admiration, hackers destroyed the source of the virus. The hospital B1 collapsed and the green fog stopped the zombies. It was rumored on the black internet that Lu Ting's soul was locked and welded into the VR cross-border blue fire and the body was autophagic. The news holographic projection flashed and the hacker circle went crazy to worship and turn to bliss, Lu Ting's terrifying ghost code version 3.7. The aftermath of the city's collapse. The famous dark network will be passed down forever. Mu Xue dragged Lu Ting out of the hospital door with the green glue soles stuck on her arms. The blue arc pulsar made a low sound and the pressure was gone forever. During the Qingming worship ceremony, her cheeks were filled with blood and tears as she trembled, "Brother Ting, the aftermath of the hospital is over. Passers-by live broadcast the name of God on the Black Network. I have transformed, crushed my soul, and returned to eternal sweetness. Her breath was fresh and putrid, and the grey mist, light sky, and warm lungs warmed her lungs, and she paid homage with the release of bliss. On the edge of the city, cracks in high-rise buildings withered, green threads sealing the streets, piles of living corpses, piles of green rivers, dry grey fog, clear street lights, buzzing news, cars flashing, sirens fading, hackers, laptops, pop-up windows worshipping, God Lu Ting. After the source was destroyed, he left the whole city and the weak virus code collapsed. His status as the Emperor of the Dark Web is locked forever. Lu Ting's blue liquid, remaining energy, blood vessels, burning pressure, self-trap, 0.3% cold eye lock, map, abandoned laboratory, running in the direction of the grey street, bloody breeze face fresh, he pulled Mu Xue's iron arms to protect his waist and roared to suppress the fear, the source is not exhausted, the ultimate code is broken and sealed forever. Mu Xue's knees were weak and Ben Wax's legs were steady and the blood hole was sealed. He worshipped and whispered, Brother Ting is running to the source so fast. The world has turned green and his reputation has faded. Sweet family will always be with you. Passers-by in the distance opened their eyes wide and trembled, recording and screaming in admiration, that's Lu Ting. The hacker savior, Blue Vulcan, is suppressing the virus tide, incredible. The abandoned iron gate at the entrance to the abandoned laboratory is heavily guarded by digital ghosts with clanging green and rust stains. The green eyes of a million wax faces stared at the black abyss, and the afterimage of the mirror spirit appeared. Li Wei whispered like a million insects gnawing at the ears and exhaled with a sour nose, Welcome, home, the hacker's soul is the sweetest, the eternal home hook. The green code vortex door gap reversed and the green mist surged slightly. The sound of a clock and heartbeat synchronized to suppress the soul. Lu Ting's cold eyes locked the entrance and his brain calculated the ultimate code, Ghost Lock Break 7.2 #forever sealing. The full power of the welding pen was buzzing with blue fire and gathering momentum. Mu Xue threw her arms in fear and screamed in admiration, Ghosts are serious, Li Wei's remaining words of welcome. Brother Ting is the ultimate god of war. After the aftermath of the whole city, you will be named the Emperor and I will always be sweet. The green claw shadow of the iron fence stretched out the door and hissed in the cracks. The iron grid clanked, the green rust peeled off like rotten skin, and the waxy faces of millions of ghosts surged into the black abyss. The pupils expanded into the black abyss, the green eyes expanded and the sinister smile twisted. Li Wei's remaining words thundered in her mind, Go home, the hacker soul is the sweetest, forever hook home. The green code vortex door sprayed green mist back from the seam, sour rot pungent the lungs, burning iron and mixed with the smell of wax. Mu Xue fluttered at her arms, her wax fingers were picking at her flesh, and the bloody traces were green. Her knees were slightly swollen, and she dragged herself to the floor. She screamed, collapsed, feared, worshipped, eyes wide, and the black abyss flashed. How can you, the Emperor of the world, break out alone? My mutated knees are weak and I can't keep up with the pressure of God. She breathed green mist, choked her lungs, and worshipped with blood and tears mixed with green liquid. Lu Ting locked his eyes coldly at the entrance and calculated the trajectory of the EEG game for 0.01 seconds. He trapped himself in 0.3% blue liquid and burned his blood. He stabilized his blood vessels. He withered his claws and tore out the welding wire of his pen. He used full power to buzz the sandbox. Alien, source hook, I will be silenced forever. Mu Xue screamed and refused to hug her legs, wax arms, and jumped back to worship in despair, no. The ghost army swallows you. Tianjiang kneels down and worships. The green-clawed shadow, 10,000 whips, the air hissing, the sea of souls, smashing the iron fence, smashing the green river, sealing the entrance, her wax body leaning back against the grey wall, and kowtowing with blood and tears, and collapsed. Brother Ting pushed me back. Green Claw Whip Soul. Shen Gujan Yongtian's soul is broken. The iron grid shattered and the sea of green mist swallowed Lu Ting's knees, his rotten skin emitted white smoke, and his vision was filled with green swirls that crushed his soul. He was dragging his laptop half-consciously across the gray ground, gripping his arms, and the blue fire-welding crystal interface pierced his brain. Bloody threads dripped green slurry, and his brain buzzed. Quantum fusion of reality and reality merged. In the guard room on the first floor, an army of wax-faced ghosts shuffled, thumping, green bone claws roared, sour and rotten breath sprayed on the face, door and lungs, burning iron was biting, the bells ticked and thundered, green juice sprayed against the cracks in the wall, and the rotten air pressed to the top. The projection of Li Wei, the Ghost King, hung high in the sky and the black abyss fully expanded, and murmured with a ferocious smile, "Gu Han sold it to me to upload." Han Xiaoshu Bridge was eaten. Shen Mo's zero domain burned the army and swallowed. This boy's soul is the sweetest presenter. Lu Ting calculated frequency 7.2 GHz soul locking welding pseudocode blue arc explosion network burning 100 ghosts wax skin huge chunks collapsed the green slurry river sneered at the fiefdom, his iron fist smashed through the green crystal wall, the heart pulse of the green worm exploded, the blood rain poured down, and the shuffling sound was chaotic and stagnant, retreated by 50%. On the street outside Mu Xue, the blue arc of the pulsator was violently pressing on the swollen green veins, the silk ash was sealed, the breath was fresh and distant, the smell of implosion was filled with burnt wax, the stench was filled with screams, fear, and worship. Brother Ting is welding the pseudocode and the blue fire is burning the first layer. The ghost is dragging to death and the green bugs are exploding. Li Wei's projection is shouting at Gu Han. Shen is selling to eat your soul sweetness. The gods are crushing the legion's knees and I will worship you forever. Passers-by. The high-rise window shadow's mobile phone live broadcast widened its eyes, trembled and screamed in shock. The hacker emperor broke into the source. The blue arc network exploded at the entrance of the green fog and the ghost-burning army. Incredible fame will be spread on the dark web forever. The news holographic barrage was flooded with worship, and the fear turned to bliss. Lu Tingshan welding 7.2 hashtag first level collapse. Zhong Ruo's aftermath wiped out the zombies on the streets, shockingly saving the world. The second layer of the quantum corridor, the sea of green mist expands, swallows iron filings, falls and echoes with a clang, the legion of living corpses revives, the green bones have broken legs, they squirm and dig at the wall with withered claws, green marks stretch out, blood rivers mix with green slurry, digital ghosts, mirror spirits, afterimages, tens of thousands of hands stretch out souls, the black abyss whispers, the ticking of bells, the heartbeat synchronizes, the riot crushes. The soul. The projection of Gu Hanwa's remnant soul suddenly appeared with green bones and arms and withered claws biting each other's throats and roaring with regret and remorse intertwined. Young man, the blue needle pierced my green insect heart. I regret selling Han Zhao's first bridge. Li Wei volunteered to keep watch, and I summoned the fusion overload. The Source Hook's eternal family is here to stop you. His green eyes turned to panic, and he smiled with withered claws, whipped the air, scratched his soul, and his breath was sour and rotten, and Lu Ting's face was full of rotten skin and white smoke. Lu Ting's brain buzzed, his cold eyes locked, the projection trajectory flashed sideways for 0.02 seconds, the iron arm locked the neck, the green silk whip cracked the waist and bones, the pain burned the field of vision, the green swirl but the welding ultimate code preparation line tore the blue fire, the wild flame self-exploded, the living corpse tide burned, the charred wax smelly pressure chamber, repent and eternal silence. Gu projected his bones into stiffness, pulled out his waxy skin, and his eyes collapsed into the black abyss. He roared in worship, the soul of God is broken. I regret my home with both sides and die. The projection was gray and sealed, and even the corridors and green rivers were sealed. Only the cracks in the crystal ladder remained. Han Zhao's residual image, the green skeletal body, drags and vomits digital insects. The wax face collapses without eye sockets. The black abyss explodes. Green juice spurts out the throat and whispers. The hero echoes, "The last blue needle of the boy is my legacy, the first example of goo selling, the pressure of the abnormality certificate is really worth it." The remaining soul of Shen Mo, a hooded hacker, the blue arc whispers and the projection wax face is shattered, the green bones are broken, the arms are withered, and the digital insects are chopped at each other. The throat green mist protects the neck and the abyss eternal silence roars in worship, zero domain sacrifice passcode. Mutual trust burning army's speedy prediction. Cut off the source and eternal sealing. The motive of the sacrifice is replayed with a thunder in the mind. Gu Hanhe's project summons supernatural fusion, Li Wei volunteers to upload the Guardian Overload, summons the Ghost Army to overflow, Han Xiaoshu Bridge is betrayed to prove the truth, Shen Mo Zero Domain Burning Army Yuan Tons Code Value. Lu Ting gasped, the remaining flames of the blue fire burnt the green mist, and the 30% of it climbed up the crystal ladder. The clanking iron filings fell into the green slurry. His breath cleared his lungs, and he trapped 0.1% of his soul. He sneered and suppressed his soul, "It's worth it, the source is destroyed." The remnant core of the quantum crystal clock in the core room of the third floor of the zero domain is buzzing like a heartbeat and jumping again with green light ripples and flashing. The cracks in the wall are cracking and green juice is spraying back. The rotten air is sour and smelly. The ghost king Li Wei has a wax body and a high throne. Green eyes and black abyss. The whole city's bells chime in unison. The sea of green mist swallows the server. The iron frame clangs and collapses. Li Wei laughed ferociously, with swollen whips and green arms, hissing in the air, soul-grabbing breath, green mist, and sour rot on his head. The whole city is hooking my young family. I'm going to sacrifice my sweet soul to enter the destruction code. Lu Ting's knees were soft and his brain was humming. He was soaring by 5%. The green whirlpool swallowed the soul, he was half conscious, and he dug his claws into the ground and dragged his laptop with green marks. The electrodes of the power welding VR helmet pierced the brain and bloodshot threads dripped ash. He roared and tore the threads to prepare for a new battle. Part of his consciousness entered the ultimate code, Ghost Lock 7.2 #eternal sealing. The blue fire power grid exploded in the core room of the cover. The green mist, the sea, the burning shishi, the stench of burnt wax filled the air, filled with ghosts, wax skin collapsed, green slurry, and a river of blood rained down. Ghost King Li Wei's green eyes widened with fear, trembling with withered claws, hissing in the air, his soul throat shattering, roaring in shock and regret. Young man sacrificed his consciousness to weld the soul lock. The source server exploded the divine pressure. Regret voluntarily uploaded the Guardian Overload. Lu Ting smashed the crystal clock with his iron fist, ticking the green crystal veins, exploding the green insect's heart, and sealing the abyss. The server iron frame exploded with a full burst of blue flames, a sea of green mist, and a sea of blue flames and green mist spurted out, self-devouring charred wax and the smell of soaring to the sky. The sound of the bells suddenly stopped like a heartbeat. The sound of shuffling feet is forever silent, the green bones are eating each other's ashes, and the ghostly hands in the mirror are eating away at the cracks in the mirror. The whole city is silent as the high-rise buildings are shaking and falling into dust. Lu Ting's half-consciousness collapsed, his bloodline was on fire, and he was trapped at 99% of the edge of his soul. A green swirl swallowed his vision, and the black abyss pressed against his brain, on the edge of eternal silence. Pulsator on the street outside Mu Xue, blue arc afterglow, low hum, core explosion, gray mist clearing lungs, putrefactive smell dispersed, skylight warm, dazzling, screaming, collapse, worship, bliss release, rushing to the entrance, green river, dry ash sealed iron fence, pile of broken wax corpses, pile of green bones, and eternal silence. Brother Ting offered sacrifice and welded it off source. Li Wei, the ghost king, roared with regret, the server exploded, and the clock stopped, and the steps stopped forever. The whole city regained the divine pressure and was destroyed forever. My eternal sweet soul returned. Her wax arms were sealed with ashes, her knees were kowtowed with blood and tears, and she was trembling in worship. Her breath was fresh and the wind was blowing on her face. She was in a new world of bliss. Passers-by stared wide-eyed and trembling in the distance, and the live broadcast of the mobile phone video was shocked and admired. The hacker emperor reveals his consciousness and explodes the source. The green fog retreats, the living corpses are permanently frozen, the mirror ghosts disappear. The world saves Lu Ting, and his name will be passed down forever as the Darknet Emperor retires. During the day, the sky was dazzling. Lu Ting was seriously injured and woke up. The gray mist and putrid smell in the blood pool had dispersed all the blood and blue liquid. The remaining ash sealed the 0% soul. His cold eyes opened slightly. Mu Xue hugged her waist and picked at the flesh with her wax fingers. Zero domain sacrifice. Divine cutoff source eternal silence and mutual trust eternally. Han Zhao's green skeletal remnant whispered the hero's response, the blue needle relic proves the truth. Presses the eternal value. Gu Han's remaining green eyes shattered in regret and worshipped, double-sided regret selling. God stabs the heart family hook to destroy. Li Wei Ghost King's remnant shadow black abyss green juice dry whispered eternal silence, voluntarily guard the overload of repentance. Soul sweet eternal family is broken. The projection was gray and sealed, and the silence was as quiet as new life. Lu Ting sneered, squeezed his brain, deleted all hacker traces, sandbox pseudocode, completely destroyed the VR welding crystal, disconnected the black network contact pop-up window, locked it forever, and retreated forever. His iron arms protected Mu Xue's waist, dragging him through the gray street. The bloody breeze blew in his face, the fresh high-rise building repaired the street lights. The news car flashed the siren. Recall and move forward. Mu Xue's knees were soft and her legs were steady. The blood hole was covered with gray and her pupils were clear. She worshipped in bliss and whispered, Brother Ting erased his traces and retreated. All the heroic spirits said goodbye to the new world and the sweet home. The memory will always be with the soul. On the distant horizon, there is a faint flash of green threads and the ticking of the bell. The heartbeat is slightly turbulent. The soul sea of new suspense whispers, but the source of terror is forever extinguished and the satisfaction of the sky shines. The city is waking up, zombies are piled up in ashes on the streets, the green pulp is dry and cracked, and the wind blows away the cries of children. From far away, I can hear the mother hugging her knees, shaking, and then bursting into tears of joy. The clock has stopped, the ghost has retired from the world. The hacker circle and the dark network will always pass on the legend of Lu Ting. The iron fence at the end of the deserted street will forever seal the green rusty traces in the back of the brain, and the trajectory will forever lock in new life. Mu Xue flutters into her arms, wraps her arms around her neck, kisses the blood, tears dry, and warms her lungs. The bliss is released, the sweet home is hidden forever, the memory moves forward and suppresses the fear of new life. The sky warms the lungs and the whole city is quiet. The wind blows and the gray fog disappears. The survivors of the horrific catastrophe and eternal silence bear the sacrifice and move forward to be free and content with the world. Lu Ting's heart is like cast iron, he roars coldly and suppresses the phantom tide, brain lightning game. Gu Xion's 8% explosive is synchronized, Soul Lock 7.2 frequency pseudo code way mirror 13 hashtag full power welding VR interface detonates across the border, destroys the crystal medium and cuts off the source of the pulsation rate peak weakness. The core autophagic cycle of the asphalt green worm in the quantum clock. He violently tore up the blue fire electromagnetic net of the virtual arm and welded it from the sandbox pen. He calculated the trajectory of the ghost hand and flashed sideways for 0.03 seconds. The green chain whip whizzed in the air, and the air was scorched. The iron fist smashed and locked the frequency input.